Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Paper Peeps Podcast. I'm very excited to just get right into it. We have a lot of things to discuss today, and I'm joined with some very special people. I say that every episode, everyone's special, but today's episode in particular, some very good friends of the Paperverse and developers alike, some new faces as well. So I'll let them introduce themselves right away. Mr. Boober, would you please take the floor?
Sure. Howdy. I'm Boober. I go by he, him. Yeah, I like making video games. I like playing video games. I don't get to do the latter as much as I want to, but hopefully more in the future. I don't know. I wasn't prepared to talk about myself. I want to talk about other things.
All right. How about you, Sad?
I'm Satellite, one of the main 2 developers on Slyme Breaker, he, him pronouns, and just deeply enjoy game development and learning about it. Been my passion for years.
Very introspective, thank you. And of course, my next 2 guests, they're no strangers to the podcast. Mr. Matt, please.
Oh, Mr. Matt, that's my father's name. I'm Matt. I am the solo developer for Video Game Fables and the newly released Nightmare Arena DLC. Get it now on Steam. I make games. I like playing games. Like previously stated, it's kind of hard to get more time to play games, but now that I'm kind of done with development, I'm taking a break and I'm actually playing games again, so that's fun.
Neat.
Congratulations.
And of course, our mainstay on the podcast, we can't have an episode without Mr. Charles.
Hi guys, it's me, Charles, from the Mogrimera Team again. It'll just be me this time. And yeah, games I've been playing. I've been recently playing Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Definitely great Kirby game right there. Really, really enjoy it.
Oh, pretty nice. All right, we'll come back to that because I have some questions about that one. And of course, Spirit Buddy, new to the podcast as well, but no stranger to YouTube and content creation, and also an ally of the Paperverse. It's so good to finally sit with you on the same, piece of content. How have you been?
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure. I'm very honored. Yes, I am a content creator. I stream terrible games on Twitch, and I review good games on YouTube. I've done a couple of reviews. I reviewed Video Game Fables, and just recently I just covered a new game that's going to come up called Scratching Melody. So I love to make content,
Pretty good. Thank you guys for the introductions. Very excited because we have some very interesting topics to talk about. But of course, our icebreaker, gotta have that. Now, you guys have already heard that our developers were kind of pressed for time. But if you've been playing anything recently, please, we would like to know. Uber, have you been playing anything recently?
TF2 is always fun to play, especially during the holiday time, the Halloween time of year. So, been playing that with some friends lately as well.
Wait, Team Fortress 2?
Yeah.
They still update that game?
I mean, it's less of an up. Well, I guess it is technically an update. Yeah, they added new things. It feels like it's. Halloween is the one bastion that game gets of Halloween will always get something, even if it's just a few community maps made official, a few new cosmetics. You can always expect Halloween, if nothing else, to keep TF2 alive. So,
yet another point in Halloween's favor.
Right?
Video
It's such a
games
good
have
holiday.
Banger Halloween events all the time.
It's also my birthday as well, so another reason to celebrate.
Happy birthday!
Yeah.
Happy spooky birthday!
Oh, thank
Happy
you.
early birthday, yeah.
Happy belated birthday. Sorry I missed last year.
Happy belated birthday.
I didn't advertise much last year. I'm good to me. All right. I guess I'll go. We talked about it before we started recording, but of course, a little bit of Deus Ex. Fantastic game. Clunky as all get out, as we were talking about. It needs, if anything needs a remaster, it's that game. And then I've also been playing more of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So I've played all the games. I was replaying 2, but decided I was just going to switch over and get through 3 since I've been putting it off. Really enjoying myself. Man, the combat system. I thought 2 was the best, but 3 is now my favorite. It gets better and better every title. I love it.
It really does.
The only thing I was kind of surprised is that the music is phenomenal, but I still think overall 2 has like the better battle themes. I'm not too struck by the battle themes in 3. Besides Kevin's battle theme, that's a series statement.
I don't entirely disagree. Just like give it more time because there are some standouts in 3. I would say.
Thank you for reminding me too that I have not listened to any of Xenoblade 3's soundtrack yet, and I need to do that so I can steal the music from my Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
Ooh,
You really do.
That's
a good idea.
Yeah, Kevin's battle theme. That's where it's at least for right now. I'm not sold on the Agnes battle theme at all.
If anything can approach Tantal's,
I don't think anything. I don't think anything will get there. I'm to be honest with you. I mean, I'm kind of asking early because I'm only like 13, 14 hours in, but I mean, it's kind of hard to top Tantal and more arcade.
Only 14 hours.
Yeah.
I know. I just started. You know,
No, it's just the fact that any other game you would be done by now, but JRPGs, man, they're so long.
So long.
You take like hundreds and hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
Boy.
Yeah. I have like 300 hours in Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Christ.
Anything we missed as far as games and stuff go?
I'm still on Elden Ring just because it's also in that hundreds of hours category. I'm finally in the end game. I just beat the boss that kicks off the end game proper in the last time I played it. So now I'm just like, okay, time to wrap up the open world checklist. Go hit everything that I have on this list of like, I'll just save this for later. And then I finally get to fight the final bosses and we're done.
Wow.
I like that game, but gosh, there is so much of it. I'm tired.
I didn't get. Oh, go ahead, Uber.
I was gonna say, like, hundreds of hours as well. Like, unlike the JRPG example, you know, how it's a Soulsborne. How much of that was like failed attempts as well? You gotta consider.
With me, not a whole lot by comparison. I'm generally pretty competent at these games, except for the most recent boss. That was actually suffering.
Did you get to Malena yet?
I had a wonderful experience with her, where I stumbled across her arena.
Mm-hmm.
The cutscene started. I was like, oh, this is that boss everyone talks about. The fight started. Elden Ring is not optimized at all, so on PC it kind of struggles.
Yeah, stuttery and
and so it stuttered right as the fight started. So from my perspective, Malenia just teleported next to me and my health bar disappeared.
That's not too far off from what she actually does, though. Like, to be honest, that's not that far off.
And I was like, yeah, well, we're just gonna put that one on the list of things to do right before the final boss and move on with our life. So.
He is the only Soulsborne boss I had to get help with. Through every game, I've been stubborn, and I have always made it a goal to do every fight by myself. And that is the one fight that broke me after playing like every single one for years. So that's just a testament to how much bullcrap is in that fight.
That's concerning.
It sounds very hard.
I mean, no, it's fine. It's fine. Never mind. It was fun.
Also, now never having summoned help for a boss, so I guess we'll see if I manage to pull it off with that one.
Yeah.
I think I'm like the complete opposite. I did not get swept up in the Elden Ring fervor that took over the gaming industry, and I started it, and then I think I put it down, and then I got caught up playing something else again. I never picked it back up. I didn't think it was a bad game or anything, but I was put off by like the poor optimization, and it was a stutterfest. And I've got a monster of a system. You're talking about 12700K, RTX 3070 Ti. Like, there's just no reason that the shader compilation issues the game had should have been that bad. It was rough.
I mean, I've wanted to go back and play through it again, but it's the performance issues are what's stopping me. So that's a testament to how bad it really is on PC. Because, like, I mean, my PC is not super great, but I know it's not just a me thing, like as you just said. But it's like
Well-
it's bad enough where going back and playing it again is like I want to so bad, but I don't want to sit through frame rate problems.
Yeah, I want to get through too. And then it's not the PC issue because Steam fixed it. They fixed the shader compilation issue themselves for the Steam Deck. There's no reason that my desktop PC can't have a better experience than what's essentially a tablet with controllers bolted on. There's no reason because the game doesn't stutter on Steam Deck. Because what they did is they took all the shaders in the game and they pre-compiled it on their servers. So once people on the deck actually started playing, there was no shaders to compile. Well, that doesn't happen for us on PC because everyone's got a different CPU, a different graphics card, so they can't do that. But that should be on the developers themselves to include some kind of pre-shader compilation system or whatnot. Uncharted did that. More games are starting to do it. It's kind of aggravating. That's one thing that really made me mad about the game because I launched it. I was upset. I really was. I almost refunded the game. It was that bad.
Yeah, it is.
Was there a patch for the game eventually, or
it didn't fix the stutter compilation?
Patches, but they haven't fixed,
no!
Yeah,
they have not fixed the stutter issue.
They don't have a great history with PC.
They really don't. As I understand it, the servers for Dark Souls 2 just came back online, but they didn't actually bother to fix the security breach that made them turn them off in the first place.
I thought that was Dark Souls 3, or was it both?
It was both.
Oh, Lord.
They fixed it in Dark Souls 3, and then they just didn't in Dark Souls 2.
What a good strategy. Just don't do it. Just don't fix it.
I was gonna say they had day one patches regardless, right? Patches shows up in every game.
I believe so.
Yeah, but patches didn't fix the shader compilation issue. That's the main problem, and I can.
Boober was making a joke. Patches the character.
Yeah, shows up in every Soulsborne
game.
Oh, I didn't even catch that. I'm lame.
I'm with you, Matt. I'm not with the Soulsborne lore.
I am though. That's the sad part. I should have known. I just didn't catch it because I'm tired.
He's a very fun character.
Is he though? Yeah, he is.
Yes.
I like him in Bloodborne the most when he's literally just a gross spider.
You guys are definitely making me want to play Dark Souls.
That's a choice.
I don't want to spend my entire gaming session dying over and over again. The closest I'll get to Dark Souls is Jedi Fallen Order. I love that game to pieces, and the game's amazing. So that's about as close as I'll get to Dark Souls.
Yeah, that's a good game.
You should play the classic Mega Man series, Jeeve.
I have played the Mega Man series actually.
Classic.
What?
Yeah, you're talking about the NES ones, right?
Yeah, I was just doing a bit because you said I don't want to spend my whole session dying over and over.
Hey man, I'm not good at one.
That game you'll definitely be dying a lot.
I'm not good at one. I'm kind of more alright at two, but I can moss somebody up in three. I'm golden at three, so I'm alright.
Wild.
I'm alright. Yeah,
you should try Mega Man and Bass on Super Nintendo. That's a hard one.
Isn't that the game that's awful?
It's hard.
You know how little it narrows it down for the Mega Man series.
it didn't come to America. It had like a Game Boy Advance re-release, but the original was on Super Nintendo. It didn't come to America.
Are you talking about Mega Man and Bass or whatever? Or?
Yeah, Mega Man and Bass for Super Nintendo. That is a hard one. Like, if you want some difficulty, that's the one to go to.
Is it hard good or is it hard because it's bad? There's a difference.
No, I think it's just
question with any Mega Man game.
I think it's like hard to the point where you're gonna start to pull your hair out.
This is like
I don't think I ever finished it.
I don't know if that's bad. I hope it's not that bad.
Oh, it's less of a question of like the difficulty being objectively good or bad, and more of a question of how it achieves the difficulty. Because
it's not like Elden Ring's hard. It's, you could definitely learn your way around it, but it's challenging. You
know what game that everyone praises that's hard but is actually really bad? Ninja Gaiden on NES. No, Ninja Gaiden on NES. Ninja Gaiden on NES is awful. It is not balanced. That game is bad. All three of them are bad.
I agree.
I don't know why people, the rose tinted nostalgia glasses, but those are not good games at all. They were special for the time, I guess. But you go back and play those games, like no. Everyone's like, no, the difficulty is fair, it's balanced. No, it's not. The game is broken. the games are broken.
That just sounds a little biased, Jeeve. When has Team Ninja ever put out a bad game? Name one. I can't think of a single one.
Come to think of it,
I'm shocked that
which
Boober
game
is
was bad
entirely unfamiliar with all of Team Ninja's catalog.
That's the bit.
That's the bit.
Awful. But don't get me on my soapbox. Don't get me on my soapbox about those games. I hate them.
Box.
We all
Box.
have,
Let's
we
hear
all
it.
have our soapbox.
Have you tried the Ninja Gaiden Sigma series? Those are fun.
Yeah, I like Sigma series. I like that.
Yeah,
Those games. I didn't like the Switch ports, but I like the games in general.
Do we miss anyone else's what they've been playing?
I haven't mentioned mine.
Please do.
Okay, so I've been playing a game called Sever Steel on Steam. Basically, if you wanted to live out like the Matrix, you could just like do slow motion. You have like guns on you, and you just shoot enemies all around. It's so fun. I definitely recommend if you're a fan of if you are a fan of the Matrix movies, you got to check out Severed Steel. It's a really fun time. Severed Steel. Yeah, it's an indie game that came out I think a year ago, and I cannot recommend it enough. I'm also playing you would not believe it, but I'm playing Home Improvement, the video game, on Super Nintendo. And
that game is wild.
Yeah,
That game is amazing.
I'm actually doing a challenge to do a deathless run, like just the whole game, not dying once. So I think after the podcast, I might go ahead and do it for Twitch. That's gonna be like a big milestone if I could pull it off. So yeah, Home Improvement, the video game, that's a thing. Yeah, I play a lot of retro games, so I don't know why I'm playing that one in particular.
I've only seen the AV Jan episode where he included it, and that was hilarious.
Yeah, like nobody can get past like the first few stages. I've actually beaten it. I beaten the game this past summer, but now I'm trying to do a deathless run, which is like masochistic.
You know where to go? Because like the first level, you can see like a maze.
Yeah, that's the thing. I actually memorized so in the game you have to collect these crates, and basically these crates have like tool parts. So each level has a specific amount of crates in them. So you have to know where they are, and once you collect the last one, the level ends. So I went and I memorized like majority of the stuff where they're located. That's not the problem. The problem is that the enemies, there's so much enemies throughout every single level that you cannot help but just end up dying in the end. And this game kind of has like this Sonic the Hedgehog thing to it, where if you lose, so in like Sonic the Hedgehog, if you lose a ring, you still have a chance to survive, but if you get hit again, you die. So Home Improvement has the same principle, which is very hard to get around that.
I'd be interested in seeing speedruns of that game. Because I mean, there's a community for every game.
Oh, absolutely. There's a community for Superman 64. There's a community for Bubsy. There's a community for anything,
Isn't like Sonic 06 like actually a sick game to watch a speedrun of? I heard like they have like a really, really fun route for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of glitches, understandably.
I was about to say the joke is that there's no such thing as a glitchless run. It's impossible. That's the challenge.
Like people love to see people stream that game, but when they play Sonic 06 themselves, it's like a nightmare. Actually, the community is actually kind of big. You'd be surprised. Like someone's actually there's a couple of fans are working on a new edition of Sonic 06 or like a remake version of it where they improve on the faults of the original.
Yeah,
So-
I heard about that. It's like being made in Unity or
Unity. Yeah.
Yeah.
I played the demo. It's really good. It's really fun.
And that is impressive. So like if anything, the Sonic community is a very dedicated community.
Yeah, we'll see how dedicated
yeah.
they are when it comes to forces. Excuse me. But,
Yeah, that's how we ended up.
Oh,
You mean Frontiers?
Frontiers, not forces. Frontiers, excuse me. That,
Oh, I'm so hyped
I
for
was about
that
to say,
game.
you're hyped for that game? I
you're
don't know,
also
I'm like,
remaking.
Like, it's kind of like, it seems like it's gonna be a bit like Sonic Adventure with the whole like hub world thing going for it. There's some things about it that I'm kind of concerned of. Like, it feels like it's kind of trying to go for that Sonic Generation thing all over again. But I've heard from reviews that Sonic Frontiers, the main meat of the game is like the adventure, like hub world area where you fight like all these different types of enemies and you have to collect things. It feels kind of like a collectathon, but I don't really know. I'm gonna have to play the game for myself to see what it's all about.
I don't know. From what I've seen, it looks like just like a really polished Unreal Engine tech demo. You know, like you see like Super Mario 64 and Unreal Engine stuff on YouTube. That's what it kind of reminds me of. You know, one of the other server members shared something yesterday in the other games channel. I think it was like a new trailer or the gameplay IGN put out. And whatever like this weird, desolate, post-apocalyptic area was, it's just not. It doesn't feel like Sonic. It feels like another game that somebody replaced the model with Sonic 4. I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, I know where you're getting with that. Like, I'm scared to say this, but I feel like Sonic Frontiers is like the Majora's Mask of Sonic games. So it's like very dark and like gritty, and I don't really know like with the direction that they're gonna go with this game and Sonic games going forward. But you know, I do accept, you know, good changes, and hopefully this game will have like very well reception for it. So
Yeah, I hope as well.
Fingers crossed for Sonic Adventure 3 in the future.
Except Majora's Mask.
Yeah.
I think if nothing else, this is going to be the most ambitious Sonic title we've seen possibly to date, depending on like how big this game actually is. Because like the fact that they're leaning so hard into like this new direction, like whatever it is they're doing, they're not like, you know, looking to half bake the idea with something like Werehog Sonic from Unleashed, but like fully just restructure, recontextualize what Sonic is, and just like make a whole new game out of that. I don't know. Regardless of whether or not it ends up good or bad, I'm curious to see like how much of an impact it will have on the series moving forward, because it definitely is the biggest thing Sonic's been doing for a minute.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree.
And if I could,
no, go ahead, Spirit. I'm sorry.
And if I could add something, like, so 2 months ago, IGN like released a gameplay trailer of Sonic Frontiers, and they did like an awful job showcasing the game. And that's like kind of like why. That's kind of like why, if you are working on a game and you want like promotion or like exposure, like people to know more about it, make sure you put your trailer or your gameplay in the right hands of people that will take care of it and showcase like the good parts of the game, rather than just like circling around like the hub world for like 20 minutes not doing anything, you know, with like how IGN did it. So
it pretty bad.
Ever since then, like, people have been making fun of Sonic Frontiers. Like, the reception up until recently has been kind of like mixed. You know, people were kind of like pessimistic about the game, but now seeing like official trailers and gameplay, people are more like excited for it. So it's good to know that now people are liking the game rather than they are hating it now. So just be careful who you put your game in the hands of when it comes to social media outlets, you know.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's an excellent segue into like our first focus question, but we talk just about that. You know, I put it down there. It's an opinion. Agree or disagree? Influencers are supposed to act as a consumer buffer. Do you believe that any online personality, large, small, or hobbyist, has a responsibility to adhere to some kind of standard when showcasing a game or product? Now, I got your opinion, Spirit Buddy, and I'm with you on that. I think that if you are going to, you know, take up the mantle in any way, shape, or form to showcase a game, a demo, whatever it may be, you have a responsibility to not only your audience, but also the developers of who you're showcasing the stuff for. You have to be thorough, you have to be honest, and you have to make sure that you're giving that product not the best chance to sign, I'm sorry, but like the fairest of chances, excuse me. You know,
absolutely,
like you said, circling around the hub world for 20 minutes is a very bad look, and that stigma has carried on since then up until now. People still believe from that first impression that the game is rough or whatever you may have. So that's why I'm with you on that. It's super, super important. It's just something you just cannot take lightly.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if I can go, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I think definitely, and Sonic Frontiers is one of the best examples. Another one that comes to mind is the Cuphead review, where the person literally did a whole review on the tutorial level, could not get out of it, bombed it. Thankfully, the game had enough impressions before that point to really go forward. But like, if your game in Sonic Frontiers perspective, that was the first look anybody had ever seen on this game publicly. And it really stained it for quite a bit. And I feel definitely, I agree, they do have a responsibility in making sure that they adhere to at least some form of standard, especially if it's early impressions, to really get what they think of it out and to really showcase what the product or project is.
With you right there. What do you think, Boober?
It's hard to say. I feel like it gets into a whole can of worms to begin with of gaming journalism, like the gaming literacy the average journalist has versus like their skills as a writer, which is like foremost their job, writer reporter. So it really just depends on like the individual that's playing that within like, you know, whatever outlet is covering that type of game. Like there's just so many factors. Like it's hard for me to say there really is a catch-all, like this is the standard you need to follow up towards, because it's like, you know, I guess it just depends on like what that individual outlet is and like what they hold to their standard. Like in IGN's case, they're one of the biggest outlets of gaming media, period. They're the ones that give the first look, like are supposed to give like an objective impression of like what is this game like, type of deal. And so I would say in IGN's case, like they definitely did a bad job of that. They definitely did not show off like the core of the game's like systems. I guess. I don't know. It's like with IGN, like the bigger they are, I think the more you can hold them to a standard. But then like more smaller outlets and hobbyists, like, you know, that just entirely depends on what they're trying to go for. Like, for example, if say Sonic Frontiers got into the hands of someone who's is like a known glitch hunter like type of content creator, right? Well, that's not their job then to show off the game like in its entirety, in like how possibly good it can look. It's their job to find out any glitches and be like, oh, here's a bug they missed, and like show off like, you know, how polished that game is. Like, this is just a hypothetical example. You know, this wouldn't actually happen where freaking Boundary Break or something gets like the first look at like a brand new game. But like, you get what I'm saying though, at least, right? Of like, it really just depends on what the goals are of that individual outlet, and, you know, whether or not they're actually lining up with their goals.
Yeah,
I think the one universal standard that any influencer can be held to in the regard of showing off a game or reviewing a game, etc., is communicating what their personal standard is. Like in a review, you should communicate, like, this is what we're basing our score off of, and these are my personal biases as the reviewer. Like, if I'm a reviewer reviewing Sonic, and traditionally I've hated Sonic games, for whatever reason, I should communicate all that. And just...
Yeah, no
matter no matter what my job is, like if I am a glitch hunter, like was mentioned, then I should communicate that as part of my output on the particular piece of content.
Yeah, I agree. It's communication in context, like he's saying. You know, In the case of what Charles brought up as far as the Cuphead, I think that was Dean Takahashi. The guy, man, no offense, the guy is kind of a hack when it comes to gaming journalism itself. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's kind of a hack because it's just there's no excuse for how poor of a coverage that was of Cuphead. I even going back to when the game was coming out and the pre-release stuff, there's just no excuse. And this is not his first time with stuff like this before. He's done a very poor job of covering the Switch when it was coming out. He gets things wrong a lot, and that's kind of my. It's funny, Charles, we're on the same wavelength, but that was one of the reasons I had put this question up here, because big or small, I firmly believe there is a responsibility. That's where that context comes up. I get it. You can be a specialist in what you do, whether it be, like Booper said, hunting for glitches or looking at some more of the technical aspects of the game. But you have to provide that context, and you have to communicate to your audience and the developer who's giving you whatever, to let them know this is what you're doing. Because going back to the Frontiers example, again, that was a lot of people's first, just any kind of exposure to the game. And to this day, it has stained a lot of people. They're not going to pick the game up day one. Then that's kind of an extreme example. But this happens all the time. Even in our sector, smaller, mid-sized indies. You get one, not as, I won't say thorough, but not as glowing review for your game. And then that can really leave a negative impact going into release, or have a lot of misconceptions about it. So it's very, very important. I don't want to give anybody any breaks on this, big or small, because you need to be on your P's and Q's with this. This affects people's livelihoods. As alarmist as that may sound, it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Like indie game developers who make their first game, their second game. They are dependent on the Steam reviews and reviews all around. So with the major companies, they can mess up, and they can have like their exposure like through social media outlets be ruined. Like for example, IGN messing up the gameplay and everything, and then the next game they can just come back around and just hit the ball out of the park, because they're big companies. They can afford to mess up. But with indie game developers, it's kind of discouraging. Like if there's a game, it's their first game, and they start to see like critical reviews, so they try to like remedy that, by trying to fix the game as quickly as possible, communicating with viewers. It's a little bit more hectic on the indie game developer side, So they want to make sure what they're doing from day one. Everything is just pinpoint perfect, and it's very stressful. I'm not a game developer, but I could feel for that for them.
Yeah, we talked about
Definitely, and
Charles, you go.
sorry. I was just gonna say, definitely, and one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting, a little bit off topic, but if anybody here has known the whole controversy of No Man's Sky, I feel like that's one of the perfect examples where the director took all of those pinpoint feedbacks, managed to keep the team under control, have them not read any of the controversy, complete the game, and then 5 or 6 years later down the road, completely dramatically remix the game to be actually good and actually be amazing, which is just insane and mind-boggling. But if you do it correctly, you can get some really great feedback and really great advances going forward.
Oh yeah, it's unfortunate because I did buy No Man's Sky day one, $60 on the day of release, and I was kind of like soured by the experience. So I sold the game like couple months later. I was like, man, this is not for me. And then I start hearing like, it's starting getting DLC, and like the game started looking like a whole different type of game. Like, this game looks remarkable right now, but I'm just like so far past this point already. And I feel guilty because I know the guy really, the developer, the company, they really put their heart and soul into this to make the game whole again. Like, And I just, once a player is just kind of like disdained from the game and just kind of done with it, they're done with it, and they just move on to something else. And I kind of feel bad for saying that, but it's the truth. I just felt like I was kind of like just way beyond No Man's Sky at this point. So I'm hoping whatever game they work on next, I'll be very excited to try out.
That's an example in the other direction of media and influencers overhyping something that really didn't deserve it at the time. But to take a step back to when you were talking about IGN as a large company being able to just kind of phone it in on certain reviews or the like and get away with it because they can just move on to the next game. As something about IGN specifically that I wanted to mention is that two extremely similar games can end up with just wildly different review scores because it's a big company. They have multiple reviewers writing these articles, and so you can, like, they use different scales individually for scoring. Like, one reviewer might consider a 6 like, solid game, good time, worth playing, while another reviewer might consider a 6 like, this is trash, dumpster fire, unplayable. And as a disclaimer, I'm not saying that corporations shouldn't be held to responsibility, because they should. And realistically, it should be on IGN as a corporation to lay down a set of standards for their employees to try to adhere to, but also on an individual level. An individual reviewer really needs to communicate, like, hey, this is how I'm using this score system, because IGN's reviewers don't, and it's just wild to see the discrepancy between scores just flying all over the place because every individual reviewer uses a 1 to 10 scale differently.
And
I think that's why it's important from the oh, go ahead, you.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say, I would almost be okay with that if that when I watch those videos, because lately I've been seeing, well, actually for a while, there's just, even in the particular videos with different scales, there's just wild inconsistencies with the reviewers themselves with the game they're reviewing. And that's like, that's what I have no excuse for. I don't care, what your standard is. You cannot get facts and stuff wrong about the game itself, because then your review is tainted. Your opinion is one thing, but if you're saying X, Y is true in this game and it's not, that's what I have a problem with. And this happens a lot in corporate reviews, because you have so much time to write a review, you're rushing. You don't take your time. You only get to, maybe 5, 6, or 7 or so hours in a game, and you make mistakes. And they make a lot of mistakes in these reviews, and it's so aggravating to me that it just gets glossed over.
Yeah, I'm very glad you mentioned that about the inconsistency. I think if you want, I'm not trying to say like don't look up an IGN review or not, but like
I'm saying that
I feel I'm just saying if you want a really, really authentic review on a specific game of your chosen. Sorry, if you want a authentic review, I just suggest maybe go to like a smaller YouTube channel, and I'm pretty sure they have nothing to hide, right? So they're gonna pinpoint everything from A to Z, what they hate about the game, what they like about the game, and they're not being paid, unfortunately, for their reviews, but they will give you an honest opinion about it. I just feel like sometimes when I'm watching a IGN review, there is a little bit of bias in some reviews. You never know. You never know if it's just a review just for the sake of just reviewing something, or the review's genuine, That's why I recommend, if you really want a authentic review on a game, then the smaller YouTube channels, they will give you what you're wanting to hear.
Yeah, I think it's important from the consumer point of view, because we're all, like we said, we're all gamers too. So when you think of both sides, I think from the consumer point of view, you have to find reviewers that you generally agree with about stuff, because in the end, a review is an opinion. And that's why it's so important not to just like look at certain review or just like any review you find, but to find reviews from people that generally agree with you on games. Like you need to find reviewers and influencers that have the same taste as you, because like I could, I don't play sports games, so like my review of a sports game would be like, it'd be very difficult for me to give accurate and like review of a sports game. But that's why, like, if I was for some reason reviewing a sports game, someone who plays sports games shouldn't listen to my opinion, like, because we don't have the same taste. Because in the end, it's really just an opinion. But also, like, it's important that they also, like Jeeve said, is not to get stuff objectively wrong, which happens so frequently. And I've even seen, like, with my game, like, reviews coming out, like, I'll see a review and they just say something that's, like, literally just not true about the game, or, like, they not, like, in a malicious way, but more just, like, they have something wrong, or, like, they don't, or they they misrepresent a feature in the game, or they didn't use a certain feature the right way, or something like that. And it's, like, there's a lot of times where there's a difference between, like, a bad opinion or, like, a different opinion from you and something that's, like, objectively wrong. And I think that's what's so frustrating. That's why Jeeve's so frustrated, because, like, there are times where people just get stuff literally wrong. And it's one thing for, like, your game to look bad because someone just doesn't like it, and it's another thing when someone makes it look bad because they're literally wrong about something, And I've seen that. It's frustrating.
Oh, absolutely.
If I
That's
can
why I
interject
think,
real
like...
quick.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, like, on that point of, like, just objectively wrong stuff, I'm just also reminded of IGN's infamous Pokemon Omega Ruby 7.8 review. Too much water is, like, a major point deduction for that.
Oh, man.
Like, it just really... It just puts into question, like, what the point of a of a scale system like that even is, because it's like, like you mentioned, like, someone who doesn't play sports games as much, reviewing a sports game will see it as a different score than someone who does. So it's like a 10 out of 10 for one game doesn't mean like it's going to be the equivalent of a 10 out of 10 for another game. Like, people look for different things. It doesn't make sense to say that every 10 out of 10 is an equivalent experience, because they're not. They're going to be wildly different experiences depending on the individual. Like, it would make more sense if there's like, how would I even like describe the metaphor here? It's like, instead of just having a linear like 1 through 10 scale, it's more so of like a, I guess, radius system of like, if 0 is like the dead center of like, you have your 10s like 360 degrees, and like depending on what that game is, like, that would say like what angle it should be looking at and how far out it is like towards that 10 out of 10 perimeter. Like, does that make any sense at all? Like, I feel like something like that would better express that context, that what that game is supposed to be to begin with.
Yeah, I think point systems are flawed, but at the same time, it's kind of like if you, so for example, like if you look at the Accolades trailer for Video Game Fables, I didn't include reviews on there that don't have a score on them, and the reason is because, like, when you're trying to grab someone's attention in the first like 5 seconds of this marketing video, whatever, it's like, they're going to look at these hard numbers and say, oh, this game's pretty good, let me keep watching this video and not just click off. And it's like, I can't just put a bunch of quotes from, no matter how good they are, at the very beginning of an Accolades trailer, because people aren't going to read that. They're just they look for the numbers. So it's kind of like a mixed bag. It's like, man, I really do think there's too many flaws with a numbering system where it's just not, there's no transparency in it. I think that's one problem. And there's also no like standard. Like, it's just very, very arbitrary. And there's no way to know, like, why did they give it this score? Like, especially when you get into decimals, like, I had like a, I had like a 7.9 on a review score, and I was like, damn, just give me the 8. You know what I mean? Like, damn, you holding that one decimal back, which makes the score look worse. It's like, the reason why people put their prices at like a 99. So I was like, damn, just give me the 1.1 point. And it's arbitrary. It's not transparent, and those are the two biggest issues for me. And it's like, but at the same time, it's kind of like, if you need to grab attention at a glance, you kind of need a number. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what. It's just basically just venting, because I don't know what the solution is from a developer or a gamer's point of view.
part of that is just like the human condition to begin with, right? Like we have monkey brain. We like seeing bigger numbers.
yeah, exactly. I don't know.
You answered your own point here with numbers are excellent for marketing, and that's what game developers want, and that's what reviewers want as well. Which is because they want people to read their review, and numbers are eye-catching for the review as well as the game itself.
Right.
So,
you guys. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say you guys weren't here last episode, but Charles had a very sobering point. He said if you look at the credits for these large AAA games, you'll see a staff of the ones who actually develop the games are dwarfed by the marketing teams and those consultants who actually sold the game. And I went back because I was like, that is really something else. So I went back, I looked at FF7 Remake's credits, and he was right. Like the marketing team for the credits is huge in comparison to the people who actually worked on like the art, assets, the story and whatnot. It's insane. But at the end of the day, that's what's gonna sell games in this day and age. You need good marketing people. And I understand that. You know, I'm not ignorant to that fact. I just think that there can be a fine balance between an objective look at a game and having to sell copies. I don't want to get off on a tangent again, but that's another issue I have. Fine. That's another issue I have with the Game Awards every year, because I used to be an avid PGA watcher. Like every year, popcorn was busted out. I had my Coke. I was sitting there watching the Game Awards, but I just can't now. Well, maybe I'll do it this way. I don't know, but it's just so hard for me to watch it now because I get it. It's a giant ad with games sprinkled in. I understand that, but they have lost all nuance. They have lost all balance, and it's just awful. You know, I don't like seeing these corporate publishers up there. You know, IGN Sign, Verge, The Venture Beat at the Game Awards with these games they so-called reviewed carefully. That looks awful to me. You know, you're getting out a game for the best story. In the background, you've got Sony's logo next to IGN's. That is not that should not be there, in my opinion. You know, that's kind of a whole other layer of things to get into. That's another issue I have with this, is because the interplay, you know, behind the scenes between marketing and actually making good games is just about gone once you get into after a certain budget for games. And we'll talk about that later too, but it's so frustrating to me. It really is.
Before I lose any sort of segue, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make one tangent real quick, just hearing about the VGAs. My favorite story of watching the VGAs ever. Basically, I went over to a friend's apartment for a watch party. There's like 4 of us there. During the VGAs, they show off Bravely Default 2. They announced that for the first time. And the host of the party, he stands up from the couch, like visibly angry. Bravely Default 2? That game already exists, you stupid idiots! As he's like walking over to his 3DS game case, picks up Bravely Second, and like physically throws it at like one of our friends, like just sitting there watching the VGA. Like, this is a big dude. Like, gets the game thrown at his desk, visibly flinching, but like how hard it was thrown, because of just the whole naming convention of Bravely Default 2, you know, not being the second Bravely Default game. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. I just love that.
That's hilarious.
That's
Poor guy.
That's funny.
No, he deserves it. He's a Bravely Default fan.
Very passionate one too.
That's funny. Because I also have a story about the VGAs to my friends. Nothing as exciting as that, but it was 2017's TGA year, and in my opinion, that was probably the best year for the video game awards. I mean, we had Mario Odyssey come out that year, Breath of the Wild, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Persona 5 was at the Game Awards. It was just an amazing show, lots of good releases and stuff. And that's the year we found out that Joker was going to be in Smash. And since the night had started, we were already loud. We were in like upstairs apartment. We were already loud, jumping around, screaming and stuff. And when that happened, we lost it. You know, we was just, you know, turning flips in the apartment. Oh, we actually got the police called on us. They came like 30 minutes later.
He said, no, officer, it's fine. Joker was announced. He's like, oh, I got you. Carry on.
And I was like, no, just stand there. We got a disturbance. You guys are doing too much. You gotta be quiet. But yeah, that it was worth, in my opinion. 2017, that was hype. Best year for the TGAs.
Honestly, 2017 was like just a really solid year for like gaming. Period.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Oh
Breath
yeah,
of the Wild.
Yeah,
Mario.
Horizon. Oh, not Forbidden West, but Horizon Zero
Zero
Dawn.
Dawn.
The original, yeah.
Yeah, the original.
Nier Automata.
Yeah. Oh,
Arcane
man.
Studios Prey.
Oh my gosh. Nier
Sweet
Automata.
bangers that year.
Yeah, Splatoon 2.
It's like-
2017 was a hell of a year.
Yeah,
It's fun to look back at various years throughout the decades and be like, oh, dang, this
Sonic
year
Forces.
blew up
No?
in terms of games. Versus like other years where it's like, wow, this was just a dead year, start to finish.
2018. Nothing came out 2018.
That's really how it goes. It's always like we get a year of just back-to-back like home runs, and then we get a year of like dead nothing.
So how do you guys feel about this year? Really quick though. I know it's only October, but how do you feel so far? Good, bad, meh?
This year's been going pretty hard.
I think it's a pretty good year, but I feel like a lot of the stuff that how to put this? It's been a good year for announcements for stuff for next year. Does that make sense? Because there's a lot of stuff that's been announced. It's been a very exciting year for that. And there's a lot of good stuff coming out this year, don't get me wrong. But I feel like most of the hype this year for me has been just stuff that's coming out next year. Like Bravely Default 2, or not Bravely, you got me thinking about Bravely Default. Octopath Traveler 2, Final Fantasy 16. Wow, I can only think of 2 off the top of my head. But just know, despite my trash memory, there's been a lot of games I'm excited for next year.
Silent Hill stuff.
Yeah, it's just a lot of cool. There's been a lot of cool announcements this year. Is a good way to put it for me.
They killed my hype for Silent Hill 2 remake when they announced Bluebird.
Bluebird Team was.
What's wrong with that company?
You don't know. Oh, man, we could do a whole.
boy.
We could do a whole podcast.
I could do a whole episode of me ranting about Bluebird Team.
I'm not really aware, but I was curious.
The
Wow.
basic gist of it, I suppose.
They're grifters.
How do I phrase it? I need to boil this down to 2 statements. 1, they take inspiration, in the biggest air quotes, from like one source per thing they develop. So they basically just pick something that they're like, we're gonna copy this for our game that we make this time around. And it's straight up the meme of, hey, can I copy your homework? Yeah, just change it a bit so no one notices. That's everything they've ever developed. And 2, they are very, very careless with the messages they put out in regards to mental health and the like, because a lot of their games touch on that subject. And because they so carelessly rip off other media to create these things, they just send all kinds of really... Where are we in terms of cursing on this podcast? Is that okay? Is that bad? Should I
You get one free curse word. No, I'm kidding.
Everyone gets one.
Everyone gets one? Okay. That's
Spider-Man
really...
meme, I like that
I
one.
send some really fucked up messages with the media they put out. And so to see that they are going to be making the Silent Hill 2 remake, that was horrifying, because that game has some dark subject matter.
It's
and
basically
very
mental health.
Yes, exactly.
Like,
and so for
series.
Blooper Team to be doing it, I'm like, no, what have you done? This is horrible. This is the worst timeline for the Silent Hill 2 remake.
But you see what I'm talking about? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, companies could just get away with doing stuff like that, and they're still in business. You know, like there's no word for it.
Yep.
I'm just like, I don't know if you guys played the Medium, but I played it at launch, and I was like, there's just no way that Microsoft paid money for this studio and to have it on Game Pass day one. I I would have went down to the headquarters and be like, okay, you guys got to give me all my time, all my money, all my investment back, because there's no way a game came out just a steaming pile of garbage. I don't get it. I just don't understand it. I'm with you, Spirit. It's like, how do companies keep doing stuff like this and getting away? Because if I would have tried to do something like that, I would have been out of business.
Yeah, you should definitely got your money back, your time back, plus interest.
Right? But to take a step back, this year has been pretty dang great in terms of games. We got like Pokemon Legends Arceus, we got Elden Ring, we got the new Kirby, which is like our first big 3D one. That's like the first 3 months alone. I haven't even gone all the way through. I personally liked Ghostwire Tokyo a lot, even though I wouldn't say that's a masterpiece game by any means.
Alright, we all have our bad opinions.
Yeah, exactly. Like Weird West. I know Boober really liked 13 Sentinels.
Oh, that wasn't this year. That was
Oh, that was a port then.
Yeah, that was a port that only came out this year.
Gotcha. Fair enough. I wish they would differentiate on these lists. But yeah, no, there's like already just a bunch of good stuff came out in the first quarter of the year. Though we have been in a bit of a dead zone, I suppose.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, because like a lot of what I feel like was good this year was like pretty early on with Kirby and Elden Ring. And like for me personally, like summer was the summer of RPGs between like playing the Live Alive remake, hard combo into Xenoblade Chronicles 3, hard combo into Soul Hackers 2, which I didn't end up playing, but hypothetically that could have been like 3 JRPGs in a row, and it's like, guys, slow it down a bit. I don't know, it's like between Kirby and Live Alive and Splatoon 3, like there's been a fair amount I like this year, but like nothing I would really call masterpiece. Like it's all been good, none of it's been great.
Yeah. So like I don't know if you guys know, but I've been interviewing game developers since 2021, and one of the games that I did a promo for actually released, I think, a month ago, and that game is called The Outbound Ghost. And I've been very hyped to see like some of these developers that I've interviewed in the past start to make more progress and to put the game trailers out and just get their communities hyped for the upcoming release. So that's like more so like what I'm excited for. I don't really buy a lot of like AAA titles. I think like the only one that I am hyped for right now is Sonic Frontiers. Like that's the one that I'm eagerly anticipating to buy day one. But yeah, for the most part, it's been mainly like indie game titles that I've been like just checking out. And whenever there's like a Steam Next Fest, I try to check out as many of the demos as possible. And I have found a couple of like really cool games that I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be really tight when it comes out. So actually, I'm more excited for Steam Next. I'm more excited for Steam Next Fest than I am the Video Game Awards.
You get something tangible back for supporting Next Fest.
Yeah.
With the Game Awards, you get like an hour of, or maybe not even, maybe like 25 minutes of actual awards and like an hour.
Yeah, like a bunch of memes out of it.
Yeah, because I think what year was it? I think it was either last year or the year before. Like, guy fell asleep during the Game Awards. Everybody took his picture. Do you remember that, Spirit? Did you see that?
I think the last one I've seen was 2019, and the last year with It Takes Two being the game of the year. That was the last one that I watched.
I think it was the last. What year did The Last of Us 2 come out? Was that?
2019, I think. I'm not sure.
Where they won the award even though they shouldn't have. Stolen from them. It was stolen from Doom Eternal.
I always say this, but I say like the Video Game Awards is rigged. I know it's like cliche to say that, but I just feel like it's rigged.
I mean,
it's
the
a
guy
marketing bit, of course it is.
It's
Jeff
the
Keighley
Emmys of
hosted
video
it.
games, for good and bad. It's just what it is.
Yep.
But I mean, it doesn't help that Jeff Keighley hosts it and he's buddy with Sony. like their buddy, like, you know, these guys play golf on Sunday and stuff, you know. So it's just kind of strange to me how all these Sony games just keep winning year after year, even though they don't deserve to. There's better games, but what do I know?
That's very sus. That is very sus.
Basically, what I'm hearing is that AAA is generally overrated these days, and support your local indies.
Oh, absolutely.
Really quick.
No, there is.
Bo doing?
Oh, Bo. Okay, so I've been in communications with Chris, the developer of Bo, the Path of Teal Lotus. The Kickstarter was phenomenal. It went really well, and right now they're just like going ham on the development, and they're just right now they're slowly incorporating like more people on the team. So I think there's like a new artist, and they're just like taking it slow and taking in the feedback. So they're very cautious with this IP, but I'm pretty sure that Bo the Path of Teal Lotus, when it comes out, it's going to be what people really want in a Metrovania. I've actually played one of the builds for the game. I've done a stream with Chris while I was playing the game, the demo, and it was such a pleasant experience. Chris is such a standout guy, so I wish him all the luck. And you know, in the future, I would love to interview more game developers. You know, Charles, like anyone that's listening right now, you know, I'll be happy to give your game a look and give you a really, really neat interview, you know?
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah. I just really appreciate game developers. You know, they put a lot of time and effort, and sometimes they have to sacrifice a couple of things here and there to get their dream project out there and out there to the whole world, and you know, be successful and everything. And also like the artists that make the art and the composers, they do a lot, you know, and they just want to be recognized, and I hope they do. You know, a lot of AAA titles get this recognition, and they don't give like half as much as the efforts of all these game developers and composers and artists that they put into their work. So definitely support your game developers. They put a lot of effort into their projects and their dreams, you know.
Mm-hmm. Very well said. Thank you very much. If you don't learn anything today, guys, in the podcast, with Spirit said, that's the takeaway. Yep. Support local indies. Speaking of indies, excellent segue into our next focus question. This one's a little bit more, I won't say niche, but not super wide applicable. But we can all offer some good insight on it. It says, depending on how deep one gets in solo development, they may end up having to play both dev and traditional content creator. Does this dilute their efficacy? And I think, Charles, you know better than... Well, actually, Charles and Matt, you guys probably know better than both of us, because you both hit development and marketing really, really hard. So, Charles, why don't you kind of give us your insights on this? What do you think? Because we just talked about this, like, what, yesterday?
Gosh. We did. Yes, it does dilute your efficacy because you're having to focus on one or the other. There's tools out there like multi-pusher apps and stuff like that to kind of help you along the way, so you're not having to spend at least 4 to 5 hours making all these posts, setting it up, making sure that it goes out on time, but you can spend maybe like an hour or two making the content and then pushing it all at once. But regardless, it's still time that you're taking away from your development cycle. It's time you're taking away from making the game, bug testing, making content for it, to set up a scene, shot, etc., art for it. There's a whole list of things that you can do for your content that you're creating for, and making sure you get it out there so that, well, everyone else can see it, and making sure that's pretty and touched up and pretty and beautiful.
Yeah, just 100% what he said, honestly. I had issues with the DLC because I had a hard deadline for that, because I needed to get it out for Halloween, for like the Steam Screamfest and stuff. Just for, like, you know, marketing purposes, because it's very spooky themed and all that. And I basically had 0 time for marketing this time. like 0 time, and I just had to, like, my marketing efforts were very basic. One of the things I did to save time is the only like press release stuff I did to save me time. I just sent it out to people who had done content for Video Game Fables, because I knew they were people who'd probably, you know, at least give me the time of day and be able to put out like a press release or something for the DLC. And that's like all the marketing I had time for, because I had a hard deadline. I had a lot going on. I was just developing very, very hard, and like, yeah, that was what I was doing with the base game, but I planned enough time and set a release date with enough time where I had time to do marketing and development. But this time it was just I had no time for marketing basically, and the trailer, I literally did that the night of release. I was working on it from like, I think it was like midnight of the day of release until 6:30 a.m. that day, and I got it done like just in time for release. It was really bad. It's like it definitely dilutes it 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, it's rough too because I'm on the opposite side. I just strictly focus on developing right now, because it's all I can do. You know, I'm not as savvy at marketing as like Charles or even Matt. So I just said forget it. Okay, I'm just gonna focus on making the best game I can make, and then I'll probably budget in time, like Matt was talking about doing like a huge marketing push. You know, that's the most effective to me, because even to do like a screenshot Saturday post, I just like don't have the time. I won't say don't have the time, but don't have the no, I don't really have the time to like really make a killer screenshot Saturday post. And I know you don't have to, it's just about being consistent and hitting milestones to get something out there. But I just don't see the return on investment as far as time is concerned with making a screenshot Saturday post and then versus actually just spending time working on my game. I just don't see the return or gains to make it worth it for me. So I just don't bother anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think people don't understand how much time goes into it, and I've talked extensively about how much stress marketing gives me and how I'm not good at it and how my game isn't doing well because of marketing. Because it's not that I'm like in denial, because I have a lot of reviews saying the game is good, but it doesn't have good sales. You know what I mean? And I 100% attest that to like marketing and stuff and how it's so hard and I'm not great at it. But even aside from all that, aside from like how difficult it actually is to market, I think people don't understand the actual sheer amount of time. Because I had press lists and stuff of thousands of people, literally thousands of people. And people were like, oh, so you're just sending out an email? It's really not that. Like, I sent out personalized email to every single person. Not that I would like type up a new message for each person. I'd have like my links and stuff and my descriptions. Like, that would be copy pasted. I had like a template, but I would personalize the message. I'd at least put their name. I had to put their own Steam code. I would usually have at least one sentence, showing that I know who they are and I'm not just like, so like every single person on this list, I would research that person for a few minutes at least. I would personalize a message for them. You would have to go through, dig through and find all of their social medias. So I would end up emailing them, DMing them on Twitter, like literally everything that you could possibly find for this person. So each person that you're emailing, I mean, you're going to be spending at least, you're going to spend like a good, once later on, I got really quick with it. Like I got really efficient with it, and it would only take about a minute or two for each person. But I mean, you're spending at least 5 minutes for every single person that you are sending this to. And then also you have to factor in like the return on it is very low. Like you're not going to get, some people are just going to straight up ignore you. A lot of people are just they'll respond but say they're too busy or the game doesn't fit their content. And I like I said, it's aside from the difficulty of marketing, I think people really don't understand how much actual time it takes. I mean, after release of Video Game Fables, like I was doing some development in terms of like updates and stuff, but the sheer amount of time, I was working at least a full-time job, at least, simply just marketing the game and sending it out to people. It was at
Wow.
least 40 hours a week, you know? And I think people really don't understand how hard it actually is in terms of time and difficulty.
Yeah, it's not easy. Marketing is it's hard to understand and get it done. It's a process, you know?
Mm-hmm. I mean, some people probably
Definitely.
have more streamlined processes. Like they might just like mass send out an email, but you're not going to get as much of a reply from that. You have to like personalize and actually know who you're talking to, you know?
Yeah, so it's like more authentic. Like you're
Yeah.
connecting with this person, and
Mm-hmm.
you know their intentions and yours as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's incredible how much time it takes. I had
It can even
no
take
idea
like
I
a
did it.
day or two. Yeah.
And it's important when you're doing marketing to keep very excessive data. I have spreadsheets and I have notes for people. I have this person replied on this day on Twitter, this person replied on email, this is what they said. I have specific notes for like, did they make content, did they not make content, is this a person I should follow up with, a person that showed interest that I should maybe follow up with later. It's insane. It is absolutely insane. I think people really don't understand that.
I mean, so sometimes when you give a code, they don't like. Would you be okay if they gave like your game a shout out in the beginning of their video or something, or like if they would do like a review, like anything just to get the word out is beneficial to you. If they can't do even a shout out, I don't really know what to say about that specific content creator. Especially
Yeah.
that you're reaching out to them and trying to just level with them and just try to get your game pushed out a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you'd
Like
be
a
surprised.
shout out.
I mean,
Like hey, there's this cool looking game, this RPG coming out very soon.
mhm.
Check it out.
Yeah, I think
Or like a top 10 list of like Paper Mario like games, and your game could be like one of the numbers in the list. If someone's doing a list of like Paper Mario type games for their YouTube channel, and they decide to put your game in there, that's very beneficial as well.
yeah, I think also even from content creators' point of view as well, as I think they also don't realize how much even the smallest of thing helps. And I would say that like in my messages, like I would
Yeah.
say like, hey, like, whatever content you'd want to be willing to do is helpful to me. And I'd also explain stuff like, an important thing is I would ask people like, okay, do you know any other content creators who might be interested? And I've learned a lot. Like I don't want to say, because I'm not going to say I'm good at marketing, and I'm going to in fact say that I'm bad at marketing just because my game hasn't done well. But I will say that I've learned a lot, and even though I'm still not great at it, I have learned how to be better at it, if that makes sense. So like I went from like a 20% to a 50%, you know what I mean? And I have learned a lot, and I think I can help people who are like starting off with it in a sense, even though I don't have the best results. But I have seen immediate results, and like I've seen like A/B style testing where I've seen like, okay, this works with content creators more than this works, or this doesn't work, or people don't reply to this or respond to this. Like one example is I used to have kind of a generic part in the message where I would just say, yeah, if you know anyone else would be interested, let me know. And I would like never get people to tell me like, yeah, this person might be interested. But what I started doing is I would, if they responded to me, one of the things I would ask them directly. I'd say, hey, do you know any other content creators who'd be interested in this? And I got a lot of responses. Almost every single person I asked that would have someone in mind. So there's little stuff like that you learn as you do it. Is like what works, what doesn't work, what people tend to reply to, what people don't reply to. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of work.
This is going to sound very corny, but you did more than someone that did nothing. So
Yeah.
the experience that you have right now is going to be very powerful for you. You have the knowledge, and I'm pretty sure you will keep at it. So you definitely did more than someone that didn't go at it.
Yeah.
That's
thank
more
you.
than
Yeah.
There's more that person could say about it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And one of the... Sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead, please.
One of the things I just wanted to tack in as well, too, kind of going back to the point that Jeeves mentioned beforehand with the list and the credits, it's dwarfed by the actual team, and that's the marketing team. One of the other things I found rather interesting as well too. I don't know how it is with single A or double A games, but especially with AAA games, over half of the studio's budget is straight up marketing. And a lot of that money, if you have money and you know how to use it for marketing purposes, it becomes rather easy. But for somebody like Matt or myself or a lot of the other indie studios out here that have very little to $0 for their budget in terms of marketing, the limits that you have and the straddles that you have to hurdle through, it's insane, especially just to get one like or one extra follow.
Yeah, I actually I've never had good return on investment in anything paid. I've never had, and like, again, like I'm very open to criticism, like I'm very open to learning, and so like I would love to know what I'm doing wrong, but like when I've done any paid stuff, I have never got return on it. And nothing like substantial, you know, like I've done like YouTube ads and stuff, and it's just, I don't know. So like, there's definitely techniques to making money work for you, but the problem is like, even if I knew how to do it, like I don't have the money for it. So that's kind of the problem with, you know, smaller indie developers too, is like, even if we know how to make money work for us, we a lot of times don't have the money for it, you know?
Takes money to make money.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You know, like I think personally, like one of the best ways to market a game is just signing up a booth at a convention and just telling people about your game, or like you have a stand where you could showcase the game. Mm-hmm. I went to a convention many years ago, Too Many Games Expo, and by the time I left the convention, I've already known about 10 indie games that I'm very interested in now that I would have never known about just because I went to this convention. And the people there, they were talking to me. They explained how the game works and how like the characters and everything, and it was just very immersive. Mm-hmm. And I know it's hard for a lot of people to do it. You know, you would have to travel and all that, but I know it's a very effective way. And I think another effective way is to just go make a subreddit or tell people on Twitter. You know, just there's many ways you can go about it. TikTok, Instagram. There's just a lot you could do. It's difficult, but there is a lot of methods. A couple of good ones. You know.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest regrets is not being able to go to like PAX or something. Because I think, like you said, I think that's honestly the best way, because one kind of way to explain it is like you can't force a company or journalism outlet to give you coverage. I think it's a really good way to do it. Or like you can't force like bigger YouTubers or content creators to give you coverage, but you can, if you have the money, you can get into PAX. Like you don't have to like go through. I mean, there's a little bit of a screening, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's no way you can like force a company to give you coverage, but you can get your way into PAX regardless. And I think something like PAX is like, that's where I hear about a lot of games, and it's absolutely amazing. And I think that would be one of the best returns on investments. And that's one thing I regret not being able to do. It's very expensive. You're paying like, I think it's 25. I think it's like, I looked because I wanted to do it because I knew that was a good way to market. It was like $2,500 for the smallest booth. It's very expensive, and most people like me, I don't have that money. I can't afford that, you know.
Yeah.
It's nuts, and it's kind of sad because again, it comes back to like a lot of people are hindered by the amount of money they have, and it's kind of sad. That's what comes down to a lot of times.
Well, in regards to that, go to your local game cons, folks.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of those, and it's a lot of fun, and you do get some good it's a good way to like meet people and get a little bit of visibility.
Meet people, visibility, networking. There's so much benefit, and your local game cons are certainly much cheaper than PAX. So.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it. Some of them would do it for free, like the smaller ones. Like they would just be like, "Oh, you want to show something cool? Come in here."
Yeah. I went to my local one, and it was like $35 exhibit, and it was pretty big. I think we had this year. It was they said it was like 30. No, it's like 25,000 came out in February.
Oh wow.
And it was pretty good. I wasn't selling anything, of course, but I think my return on investment for at least wish lists went up maybe 15-20%, maybe, if I'm being generous. Which is, I mean, it's more than what I had before, but pretty good, pretty decent. So it just honestly just depends when it comes to that, because if you want like a really nice booth, there's also some setup of stuff that's required with that, like, you know, having like a little cover or sign or something. And I didn't have money to do anything like that at the time, so I don't know. Depends. Presentation is key. It really is.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Great insight all around, guys. Did anybody have any more thoughts about this before we move on?
No.
Speak now, forever hold your peace. If not, what's up, Spirit?
No, I have nothing.
That's alright. Well, if not, let's move on. Even with the trend of AAA games, our next focus question is focusing on the price. Big point of contention. So it says, pricing of games is still a huge point of contention in the industry. We're moving into an age of $70 for AAA titles. And while the consensus is that rising game prices are bad, indies themselves have been slowly creeping up in price as well. What do you think the threshold is for game prices as a whole before people feel priced out? And I attached that article with the Steam regional pricing increases as the main piece of evidence for this, because this affects every one of us that are going to Steam. If you have planned to release your game at all on Steam, this applies to you, because as these regional prices increase, people in other regions where they have lower game prices in general, it's going to be pretty expensive for our games depending on what they launch at. So it's something to keep in mind. Anyone want to start first with their thoughts?
Skip it up and that up.
Oh jeez, what was that explosion?
So young. Ooh, that was a loud one.
He didn't deserve to die like this.
So, yeah, it's easy to see $70 is really bad for game prices to increase to, but any game that was, let's say, $14.99 in US is now going to be like, I don't know, like $40-$50 in Brazil or something. So stuff like that is very, very important to us, because either you can follow the regional pricing increase, because it is optional, or you can set the prices yourself for each region. But at the same time, you also run the risk of opting in for price abuse for regions, and you have to go through every single region. I think Steam supports like 100 something currencies. Now I don't know if you're going to change it yourself for each 100, or you're going to use their suggested pricing. Most indie devs just use the suggested pricing that's given to them. So that's kind of the tricky spot you find yourself in now that everything's going up.
Okay, so I could have sworn in this lifetime that I don't know why, but like around the GameCube and PS2 era, when I used to go to like EB Game Store, like to a couple of EB Game stores, I would see like Nintendo GameCube games going for like $49.99, and I just, nowadays it's like ever since the price went to $59.99, beginning with the PS3 era, I thought that was too much. But now it seems like the future generations, even the current generations of consoles, and even on like Steam, they're trying to go with the $69.99 with the deluxe edition and all that. I think that's just way too much, and I'm kind of okay with the price being $60. I'm kind of like used to it. I've kind of adapted to that being the norm nowadays. But yeah, if it's gonna go a little bit more than that, I don't really know what to say. But ironically, if a game like if there's like a new release that comes out that's like $49.99 or $39.99, I have a suspicion that game is probably like not going to be good, or it's like like a shovelware type of game going for a lot of money. $49.99. That's a lot for something that's going to be terrible in the end. A good example I could give to you is there was a game called Rambo, the video game on PS4, and that came out.
I remember that.
30. Yeah, so the initial release price of that game was $40, and all that game really was an on-rail shooter with terrible graphics, like PS2 type graphics on a PS4 console, and the voice lines didn't match with the lip syncing. So everything was just wrong about the game. So that's, if a game is like $49.99, then I have my own pessimism about it. So I think when it comes to like AAA titles, I think $60 is kind of the sweet spot now. If it goes a little bit more than that, I'm probably gonna wait on a sale for the game. If I really want the game, I'm gonna wait until it's like half that price. In regards to indie game developers pricing their games coming out on release, right now a lot of players are accustomed to the games being around like $15 to $20, and I think that's a good price. But I'm okay if the game's really good. I'm okay with the game becoming like $30. I'd be happy to support. At the end of the day, you're supporting indie game developers, and you know that the developers have worked really hard on these games, so you're gonna get a quality product at the end of the day, whether you spend $15 on their game or $30 or $40. You're gonna get something in return that's going to be quite an experience. In regards to AAA titles, I've had many times where I paid $60 for a AAA title, and I got a single A experience. Like a terrible experience with the game. So I'm more cautious, more than ever, with AAA titles than I am with indie game developers. I felt like even if I got a game from an indie game developer and I wasn't really so satisfied with it, I know that person gave it their all. In comparison to a AAA title that kind of just goes for the cash grab and all that. Yeah, that's about it. That's what I have to say about the matter.
That's pretty good.
Definitely.
All right.
Wanted to introduce a very different perspective on this on the subject. Not so much from a developer standpoint, though it helps in my case here. I'll just get into it. So I feel like with the higher price point of a lot of games nowadays, it doesn't feel like proportionally we've had as much content increase in these games compared to games of the GameCube era, for example, like back when they were only $50. That it feels like a lot of games are mostly around that same amount of content, if not occasionally sometimes less, despite the increased price. And given like inflation and all that over time, like that was just going to have to be the case regardless. But I feel like part of that has come from not even necessarily the economy side of things, but the tools of developers. Like the scope of games, I should say, of a very distinct example here. Mario Party Superstars came out on Switch a while ago, which has it's a remake of the first 3 Mario Parties, like a handful of boards from those games. That game is $59.99. It's got 5 boards out of those 3 games, which I think had somewhere around 20 boards total across that trilogy. So only a small handful of those. And the maps definitely they're definitely higher fidelity. Like they actually have 3D models now. They're not just the pre-rendered backgrounds of the originals on the Nintendo 64. But that also probably means then that it becomes that much more of a substantial investment for the developers to actually make each board in the remake of Mario Party there. And that might also explain why we never had any kind of DLC or expansion later on for that game, is that there wouldn't have been the cost reward for developing more for that game than it already had. I feel like it would be easier if instead of having to go for these like, higher fidelity, here's all these models, here's like all these special effects that go into these boards, if they kind of just like cut on the scope and like focus more on achieving the same kind of scope of the original. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to say it here without just saying quantity over quality, because it's not what I mean. Like, Mario Party 1 through 3 has like a ROM hacking scene to where people have been able to make their own boards, and like there are programs now that it's ridiculously easy to just create your own custom maps. I've made a few on my EverDrive 64 already, and it's got to be the same idea of like, okay, if community tools have come out to where people that have not developed the original games, if they can make content for these old games this quickly, then surely Nintendo, with all of their resources, including the original source code, surely they could make this same type of content, bring it over or make brand new content. Surely they could do that in even quicker time than any of us just like regular fans could, right? So I'm wondering then of like, if the jump to like trying to appeal to higher hardware has like kind of just resulted in games ended up being more expensive without really like becoming worth that expense, if that makes sense. Like, I imagine a timeline next door where Mario Party Superstars did come out, but they definitely took more of an indie approach to it. It's not the regular 3D models, 3D Mario art style we have nowadays on everything else. It's, hey, here's like a very Nintendo 64 style game, not necessarily made in the engine, but like here's a very game style like that. All these boards are just flat textures, so it's super quick for us to turn these things out. We're able to pack in that much more content now because it's so much easier to make the content. Like, does any of this make sense, or am I just going on like a ramble here? I just want to make sure.
No, that makes sense to me.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And like, for me, just even to play off of what you were saying, I forgot who I was talking to about this, but I said that if these larger studios, what would happen if most of the money? No, sorry, I'll use the Ace X as an example. So, for those who don't know or haven't played it, very expansive RPG of its time, and it still rivals even some character RPGs today as far as scope and significance and narrative goes. Now, imagine a game like that coming out, or imagine it coming out today, and the studio, they didn't push for graphics. They kept the same graphics, but they were able to reach the same amount of scope in every other aspect. All the crazy stuff they want to do, they were able to do it, but they didn't have that focus on graphics. Games would be insane today. I mean, even look at it, I'm trying to get off on a tangent, but even looking at it from a hardware perspective, like Boover brought up, we're always chasing that technical envelope, always trying to push it, but when it comes to that, something has to give. We talked about this last episode too. You can't do everything. There has to be a concession made somewhere. And the concession that I'm seeing is always game content. Gotham Knights is a perfect example of that right now. We're going to try to push this engine as hard as it can, do all this stuff, but we're going to leave out all this content and have this half-baked, broken mess come out on release. And this has been a trend we've been seeing since I'd say late PS3 days going into the PS4 and Xbox One generation. There is always a push to have the game as marketable as possible at the expense of content. And I think, again, now that we're having all the regional prices go up, this is going to be a huger issue this coming generation than it was any other prior generation before. Because when you're having to pay the equivalent of $120 in another country for a game that only ships with about 8.5 hours of content, that's a huge issue. That is going to price people out of buying games. Not just AAA games, but indies as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Definitely.
I'm glad you actually brought up the Arkham. What's that game called? Gotham Knights. Yeah. Actually, there was a video recommended to me on YouTube where someone compared Batman Arkham Knights to Gotham Knights, and the resemblance, there was no resemblance. The polish in Gotham Knights was like lackluster in comparison to a game that came out 7 years ago. It just shows you like the amount of effort that was put into Gotham Knights, and for someone to pay $59, $60, $70, get the deluxe edition, whatever edition, on day one, people will feel ripped off.
Yeah, I would feel ripped off too. Shoot.
Yeah.
You're talking about a game from 2015 that was developed on Unreal Engine 3 that looks better in every regard. I mean, there's no excuse. And it was made by the same development studio. We're not talking about two different games by two different studios. This was made by the exact same studio. Here's 7 years later, a game on a newer engine, newer underlying tech, looks worse, performs worse than what you made 7. That's an issue. There's no excuse for that. I'm sorry. And I mainly blame the publisher for the issue because I know they were the ones that rushed it out. But that's what I'm talking about as far as this negative trend we're seeing. This is really going to kill a section of the games market if it continues like this. I get it. When it comes to games and whatnot, gamers as a whole don't have the greatest self-control. And we see these trends repeated quite a bit. But mark my words, there will come a time where this is not going to be tolerated as much because people only have so much money. Money is a very finite resource. You know, they can't do this forever. Cut content year over year and just inflate these games' budgets for a negative net return. It makes no sense to me.
Well, in regards
Definitely.
to AAA, games have actually not been keeping up price-wise with the amount of money that goes into making them, which honestly, this whole price increase conversation is just a component of a larger conversation, which is monetization in games. So that's why we see so many alternate forms of monetization in AAA games these days, such as loot boxes or battle passes or anything else, DLC, etc., ranging from more to less problematic, depending on how they're implemented. But in regards to AAA, this was always inevitable. There's gonna be another one further down the line. Like, speaking in terms of how much money goes into a AAA game, the price should have been pumped up from 60 years ago. It's insane, actually, that it's held on this long. And so it's gonna happen again. It's just gonna keep happening. The indie thing, however, is what's wild to me, because indie games have a benefit over AAA in this regard, that being that they don't generally have a publisher breathing down their neck to cram as much in there as they can to catch everyone's eye, which means that they can focus in on whatever the intended experience of the game is, only put the time, money, and effort into that game needed to make that experience the best it can be, and then price their game appropriately. So that is the surprising part of this whole debacle for me, is that storefronts like Steam are stepping forward like, hey, indie devs, charge more. That's just wild.
I'm on that same level, and sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but just to splash in another 2 cents there. Teams back in the day, like N64, right? You had maybe 7 people per team. That was max. By the way, N64 carts were also going for around $80, I believe, back when they first released.
Yeah, expensive.
Yeah, carts were really expensive. Thankfully, we dropped the price down to like $60 for PS2 era, and PS2 era was like maybe 16, 17. That's pushing it for AAA. And then PS3 happened, and oh my gosh, teams grew to like sizes of 50s to 100s. You had motion capture, you had actors, you had voice actors, you had sound people, you had lighting, you had modelers, you had sculptors, you have texture artists. And the amount of maps that you need for anything, it exploded to like 8 to 7 times more. And we still kept the same price. It went up a little bit, but like Spook Elite was saying, they just exploded in terms of like the back end costs. So we decided to do all these other types of things like transactions and micros and everything else in there. And that kind of kept us off overboard for a while, but AAA it's suffering really bad right now. That's also why you have so much crunch time and all this other garbage on the back end stuff that nobody likes, but it's just coming into fruition. The thing I dislike most about this, though, is that, like, they mentioned, Steam is just coming out and saying indies charge more. I don't think that's right, because A, we don't have the expanding teams usually for, like, the smaller indie studios like us, for example. We're not growing in size. Our games aren't necessarily growing in terms of scope, the amount of quality and stuff like that. We're probably not going to be needing to do all of those maps, etc. that the AAA studios are probably going to be having. And we're not probably going for the graphical fidelity, which I feel is unequivocally part of that cost. To me, whenever I go on to like the PlayStation store, I'm looking through games and I see like a $40 game. I'm like, okay, it's going to be graphically cool and it's going to be short. That's my expectations right there. For anything 60 and above, it's going to be graphically cool and it's going to be relatively long. If it's indie and it's about $20, I'll probably pick it up. If it's around $40, it really depends for me. Usually at that point, when they try and match with what AAA devs are trying to push out, I'm always like, I'd rather just wait for a sale, pick it up when it's like $5, maybe $6. I know it harms the indie dev when I do that, but it's also making sure that, hey, I can also feasibly afford other indie games and not just be burnt out on one game that I might not enjoy so much as I probably would with a larger, more engrossed title.
Yeah, it's pretty good points all around. It is important to note that this is the recommended regional pricing. So you do not have to follow Steam's guidelines, and you can set whatever price you want for whatever region you feel. So if you want the game to be cheaper in South America, you can do that. Steam is not forcing your hand to make it more expensive. But if you go with the prices they suggest, that's what makes the games more expensive. So it's important to make that note, that if you see a game that's a bit more expensive in another region, Steam didn't make the developer choose that price. It is a choice that we have to make, whether you agree or disagree. Steam isn't doing it, but this is just something that's happened because obviously, economic conditions around the world, things are going up. But as far as AAAs go, I think it's also important.
Quick.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Before we get off this topic, I wanna mention Steam isn't forcing anyone to price at that, but it is becoming the new default, if I understand that correctly.
Yes, it is the new default.
It's something devs have to opt out of, which means one, they need to be in the loop that this is happening, which ideally they should be, but not everyone will. And two, in being the new default, there's kind of both a social pressure of like, you want to go along with what everyone else is doing, right? This is what the industry is now. But also there is a labor pressure of, like you mentioned, Jeeve, earlier, dev has to go in individually and price their game for every individual region now if they want to opt out of it. So it is still a choice on the dev's part, but it's a choice with like a metaphorical gun to their head. Not that hard line of a metaphorical gun, but there still is that pressure there of like Steam pushing them like, yeah, come on, do it.
Mm-hmm. And part of this, like I said, it's a very complex issue. It's not just that they want a bigger cut, but to play devil's advocate, a lot of users on Steam, this is what they asked for. If you go back and read the forums and stuff, this is what they wanted, because a lot of people have been complaining about price region abuse. So like switching to different regions and getting games for cheaper and then being punished for it retroactively. This is an issue that not only developers are complaining about, but users on Steam as well, because it can negatively impact like the trading cards market or whatever. I don't know. I don't care about the trading cards, but so this is something that people were asking for, and it's interesting to see that they did follow up on it. And again, mainly because it's beneficial for them and the publishing partners. But careful what you wish for, guys. Careful what you wish for.
Indies, be reasonable. Think of the trading cards.
Yeah. Hey, no. In all seriousness, no. People love their trading cards. You should know, TF2 player.
I sure do. With all the scout cards I get that I can no longer use because I'm already maxed out years ago on that individual thing.
But yeah,
so
sorry. Go ahead. I wasn't gonna say anything really too important. Just that it's kind of, I don't want to say it's catch-22, but as far as the AAA's go and about the inflated game budgets, just really quick, I just wish again that there would have been a trend toward, okay, if these costs are rising exponentially, maybe let's trim back our scope and still focus on delivering a great experience within this budget.
What I'm saying.
Well, I feel like that can be done because, okay, yes, everything's become more expensive, but what's the excuse for all these games coming out half finished, half baked, not good? There is no excuse for it. There's no excuse as far as money is concerned. That's not a money issue. That's a poor management, and that's you want to price gouge people. That's the issue because if it costs 20, 30, whatever million to make a game, and that game comes out half baked, not good, what did you spend the 20, 30 million on? Why not spend 15 million and come out with a polished experience that's maybe a bit shorter but focused in its scope and delivery? I think that's the trend we should have been going for.
I was gonna say, indies kind of have that advantage over AAA in that by default, because they have to work within that scope, they have those limitations. They're a lot more mindful of those things, and that's why we've had so many indie games that have gone into the spotlight. It's like these are as good, if not better, than a lot of AAA experiences for the content, and so they focus on that. And I almost wonder if down the road, if eventually making games will be so expensive, with all of the all the model assets, effort that goes into that. I almost wonder if we'll eventually start reaching a point where those Majora's Mask style of sequels are going to start becoming more common again, of taking the same engine, taking a lot of the same assets you already have, and then just reworking, recontextualizing those. Because those games often end up being we have the foundation made, we know what makes these good to begin with. Now we have the time to fully focus on that scope and presentation that we didn't have time before because we were making everything from scratch. Games like Majora's Mask, Kirby Planet Robobot,
Mario Galaxy 2.
Mario Galaxy 2, yeah. There's so many games that when you stop trying to focus on one-upping your previous entries and presentation and just focus on the content, story, everything the player is actually looking for, then you do have these not objectively, right, but in a lot of cases objectively better experiences. I feel like that's part of why people are so excited for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, is because they're reworking off that same engine, that same overworld, that they're able to now focus that much more on what experiences they want to craft within everything that they already have laid out. I just wonder if that'll start being a thing more often of maybe the next Soulsborne really will just be a flat out Elden Ring to maybe maybe they're remaking Last of Us because they plan on doing a new game in that exact same engine kind of thing. Just so on and so forth. It might not be too soon here, but I feel eventually the industry will have to reach a point of okay, we do need to stop increasing scope because there's only so much we can increase before it's just us losing money at this point.
Well, we are seeing a little bit of that. One with Tears of the Kingdom, like you mentioned, but I'm also pretty sure Insomniac's Spider-Man with the Miles Morales follow-up that they did.
Was it the same engine?
The same engine. Yep.
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know
pretty
that.
sure it's just like a whole lot of the same. That
Yeah.
they were just like, cool, we got what we need from the last one. Now we get to make this one.
Yeah, and everyone said Miles Morales was pretty good.
So
They're also doing it in the indie scene as well too. Subnautica 2 and Slime Rancher 2 come to mind for sure. They reuse a lot of the same assets and ideas, and even down to like their same scripts, but just added a whole lot more content.
I mean, I can't blame them if they have a winning formula and people just want a more polished version of that formula.
For sure.
Sometimes that has like a reverse effect. Like if there's an engine that's working for a company, I can only think of Call of Duty at the moment, but they use the same type of formula, the same type of engine, and then it works for a while. The games do sell, but then at the end, of the console generation, people get tired of that same formula, that same engine. They want to see something new. So eventually, players will get tired of it.
I suppose it just depends on like how far you really push that engine to its limits. Because in a lot of cases, like those Call of Duty entries won't really be trying to redefine like what they can do with that engine. It'll mostly just be like, all right, here's the engine. We're not changing anything. Just work within it, kind of thing. As opposed to, a lot of those sequels I was mentioning. Like how they do introduce new systems, they introduce new things that let them do things that they couldn't do in their previous entries. Majora's Mask, like having the whole time-based system beyond just like the day-night cycle, all the mask transformations, a lot like a whole bunch of new enemy types. Like there's a lot of things that you can do while still like working within those limitations, right? You can still expand that engine. It's not like making a new engine to begin with. And I'm not saying games nowadays like have to make new engines, but I'm just saying like when you already have that framework laid out, it's so much easier to just focus on like the big ticket items of what will make this next game good. And I think that just speaks more for like Call of Duty's unwilling like lack of ambition for that type of thing rather than like limitations of the idea itself.
Yeah, like in Call of Duty Ghosts, their main feature in that game was that they brought in a dog. That's the selling point of the game. I'm like, what?
Wow.
Neat. But yeah, I actually wanted to mention. So this is going back to like when companies get funded. Sometimes it can go haywire and definitely wrong. For example, what comes to mind is the developer of Mighty Number 9. He got the fund. He got a lot of money for it, and he was working on Mighty Number 9. But then, like at the end of the development of the game, he wasn't even halfway done with it. He started working on another game or another project. Sometimes when people trust
Red Ash, I remember
Red
all
Ash.
that controversy.
Yeah, so like when the community is like trusting a company or a developer. Sometimes they'll do like these decisions that don't really add up, and then the final product suffers in the end, and people feel very ripped off about that. A friend of mine, he's also a game developer. His name is Nico Papalia. He said it best, and I'm kind of like paraphrasing it, but he says that people often get ripped off by AAA companies because they make a half-baked game and they release it to the public and it's not polished, it's not good. That's how people get ripped off by AAA titles. But how people could get ripped off by indie game developers is when the indie developers are rude to their community. Like when a community trusts the indie game developers, they put everything into what they're making. Like they invest in the game, the time, the effort, the art, the music. But then like when a indie game developer starts to be rude and talks back to their community, that's like kind of like how the viewers, the players feels a bit ripped off about that. It's like I trusted this person and now they're acting this certain way about a specific topic, or like they're just being flat out rude to the community. I don't want to support this person anymore. I think that's like the only way people could get ripped off by indie game developers. Yeah.
Not too bad, yeah. Kind of leads into the crowdfunding scene a bit with not delivering on promises or not having that communication with the community. That's in there's been so many games that have burned people over on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and that's why it's super difficult now coming up to just kind of be a no face and make it on Kickstarter. It's rough. You have to do so much more legwork because of those awful experiences people have had prior with different developers. Just a little tangent.
Yeah, and also like if a game developer starts to do like shady practices, like they incorporate like microtransactions or they cut DLC, they cut like part of the game, they put it as DLC later on, or like an expansion pack. It could work against them, whether they are indie game developers or the company's a AAA company. So once you betray your community, it's not going to be good on all fronts.
I agree. Well said.
Thank you.
Definitely, and especially with like how Kickstarter is nowadays, the whole thematic has changed. Just kind of like with advertising and everything else, it's just continuously changing due to who goes into it and then what people get out of it. And especially for people who are trying to throw games up there to get it kickstarted, it's like a million times more difficult nowadays.
Yeah, like the game developer for Deltarune, he's not charging anything for Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 of the game. That's really great promotion. I mean, Undertale was such a big success for him, and he makes a really, really well-polished game, and he doesn't charge for it, like the first 2 parts of it. That's incredible. Like, and the reception is, of course, great. It seems like things are going well for that developer. I think the marketing on that end is really, really brilliant. It just depends, like how do you go about just showcasing your game to the world, or like showcasing who you are as the developer. You have to just make sure that what you're doing is going to be beneficial to you and also to the players.
Definitely.
I think in Toby Fox's case, it definitely helps that Undertale, because it was such the global phenomenon it was, that even working on this I guess sequel game, even working on it without really getting a single penny's worth of money directly for the video game itself, all of the merchandise that has come out for Undertale, since then, it's probably helped kept him and his team afloat, that like they're able to afford be able to do that, because like, of course, that's an amazing thing to be able to say, hey, here's this game I'm just making, it's free, go ahead and try it. Like, every indie would love to get to do that, but then it turns into the reality of like, okay, how do you become sustainable for that? Like, it's definitely the case exception more so than what a lot of indies could like end up reflecting off of in practicality, unfortunately.
Okay, yeah.
It's pretty standard, because we all know how well Undertale is done. Like you said, global phenomenon, and it would be nice to be able to say, here's TFA just for free, enjoy it. But that is not the reality I live in, unfortunately.
I mean, hey,
in the indie sphere as anywhere else, being rich and famous is extremely beneficial.
Yes, it is.
Hey, give me money for life. I'll make Slime Breaker for free.
Yeah, same. Yeah, but too. Pretty good. Excellent points. And this is kind of just, I guess, a clean segue, since we're still talking about AAA. I've had another question about Microsoft's new flagship studio, The Initiative. They're supposedly working on the world's first quadruple A game.
What?
For now, yeah, that's what I said. But for now, it's nothing more than marketing speak. Though, do you believe that there is, or there will be a need for a new classification in large-scale games? So we'll in the future, are we going to need to have a separation between AAA and quadruple A as budgets increase? Personally, I think we might, not necessarily because it's going to be confusing to the consumer base, but just to sell more games. Honestly, just to sell more games, because it's like, wow, this game is AAA, but this is quadruple A. Man, 4 A's. That's a lot of A. So yeah, I think that's gonna be coming very soon.
The year is 20XX. The first octuple A game is finally being released.
Well, we'll have the distinction for a while, and then AAA will die out, and all we'll have left is quadruple A. But yeah, there has been a push from AAA games, not really recently, but within the past few years, to push more towards being lifestyle games. Not every game, that's an exaggeration. Many games that are produced in the AAA sphere these days, these years, are like, hey, I'm the game you play. I'm the only game you play. I have so much content. All you'll ever need is me. And so I'm not surprised in the slightest that we're sliding towards quadruple A, where they're just going to be like, yeah, this has all the content in the world. It's going to take 14,000 hours to finish every bit of content in this game. This is the only game you'll ever need.
Yeah, with the existence of quadruple A's, who needs bad relationships?
Honestly, I think it's rubbish. Like, it's just another marketing tactic. Like, okay, wow, so there's gonna be the first world quadruple game that's coming out real soon, but you play it, you feel like you feel unsatisfied with it. Less content, probably less content from a game that's from a console prior. Just because it's quadruple A doesn't really mean it's gonna give you the best experience. It could just give you a terrible time. Maybe that type of game is gonna have a lot of microtransactions, a lot of shady stuff, shady business practices with the game.
Oh, certainly.
So really,
better not.
At the end of the day, like the game, like what the person feels about the game, that's like if the person really loves the game and they can relate to the characters, that's like a quadruple A type of experience to them. Just because Microsoft says that, they just want to sell more copies. That's really what they're aiming for.
Definitely, and I really agree with Spirit Buddy here. I feel like it is just a lot of marketing buzzwords here and there. Effectively stating like, hey, it's going to have a high-end budget and a high-end team. I mean, going back in the past with Destiny 1, I remember there was a lot of buzzwords for that game in itself. It was like, what, $140 million for the budget? It was supposed to be perceived around a $500 million budget, and it was supposed to go on for 10 years. That's, again, marketing buzz, but I feel like if it was going to be a quadruple A game, that would probably do as a $500 million budget right there.
Feels like the same energy as Death Stranding introducing the Strand-like genre.
Which went nowhere.
So far, give them time. Making games takes time.
Like, I feel like the closest equivalent has been like the whole metaverse thing that's been in development over like $20 billion, was it, dollars in budget, and it still looks worse than Second Life from like the mid 2000s. Like it's such a joke of a statement. Like, a game has to get to such a large scale that like it just feels like hyperbole to even picture it right now, before one actually like fully exists.
Yeah, I'm glad Charles brought up Destiny, because that's what I was actually thinking of when I mentioned lifestyle games that like want to be your only game. This just sounds like an extra high budget version of that. Like, we're gonna make a big game that has a ton of content, and it's all you're gonna have time to play, and that's what we want. We want you to play only our games so we can keep selling you stuff from our game.
Yeah.
Like, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say Korean MMOs come to mind when I think of those lifestyle games. Stuff
MMOs
like-
in general, really.
Yeah, it's true. Like Terra, what's the other one? Adventure Quest. Oh, was it Blades of Light? Blade Point? All that stuff. You know.
WoW,
This is-
World of Warcraft.
Yeah, duh. World of Warcraft.
Yeah, no, it just sounds like something like that. Maybe not an actual MMO, but going for the same execution of this game is your everything. It's all you'll ever play.
Games as a service. There's a lot more money to be made in selling someone, like
Cosmetics.
cosmetics. Like, you know, like if you were to buy, let's just use an example, our hypothetical example. You're to buy a game, say the asking price to get in is like $15, $20 just to get you in the door. But, you know, battle passes, cosmetics, that stuff adds up over the, let's say your concurrent user base is like, on the low end, you're looking at 50,000 people playing concurrently at any given time. And out of that 50,000, maybe 30 or so are actually spending, you know, in-game real money for in-game currency, cosmetics and garbage and whatnot, and constantly playing. That adds up more than selling a $60 game with maybe a battle pass to a couple million people over time, if you're looking at over time.
That's a fun revisit to the game pricing conversation. But yes,
It is.
Supplementary monetization has proven to be effective, which is why it's used so much. I mean, like we were talking about game prices, Final Fantasy 14, the subscription to that is $15 a month. That's 4 months and you're already paying full price for a game.
I would never.
Overwatch 1, that cost what, $40 normally? I don't
60
remember.
the Legendary Edition.
Okay, fair enough. But even still, they had loot boxes and the like, and then later in the game's lifespan, added in battle passes and the like, as I understand it. And now Overwatch 2, they've just tipped fully over the edge to where the game is free and all of the monetization is just on loot boxes and battle passes and the like you were saying, Jeeve. It works. That's why people do it.
You hate to hear it.
Yes.
But it's
you
the
really
truth.
Pay money for
It is the
Overwatch? What for, though? You pay money for Overwatch for what? To get yelled at by kids?
Yeah.
Most online games now, shoot. Oh man,
Yeah.
I wish Matt hadn't exploded spontaneously, but we talked about in the last episode. He'd been playing a lot of Fortnite recently, and we of course we ribbed him for it, but that's the game right there. I just couldn't imagine playing Fortnite now.
Game as a service.
Yes, it is,
A
and
one and a one.
keeps winning awards at the Game Awards. It won something last year, the year before, and the year before that as well. Like 3 years in a row, it just keeps winning stuff at the Game Awards. I don't know why. I don't know how, but I guess it's just the game of all time. I don't know.
It actually got game of the year, I think around 2017 or 2018. For Game Awards, it got Game of the Year.
Yeah, I think it was 2018.
I remember that.
I think it was 2018.
Yeah.
Game of the year. And of course, Tim Sweeney came out there and started preaching to everybody about how great Epic Games is, and that was fun. That was fun. Fun times.
But yeah,
yeah.
that's what a quadruple A game sounds like to me. Just a big ol' high budget game as a service.
Yeah.
Like I don't really play a lot of Fortnite, but it did catapult the whole battle royale genre, so I could definitely respect that. I mean, probably there was a few before Fortnite, but it definitely put the battle royale genre on the map. So that is a big accomplishment.
Yeah, and to give
Definitely.
the game its props, as far as monetization and whatnot goes, I think it's probably the gold standard for how it should be done. It's a free game. Nothing you buy affects like it affects any stats in the game. Everyone's on the same equal footing. It's just if you want to look cool, then you just shell out cash. And I think that if you're gonna do that, that's the way it should be done. I don't think you should be paying for advantages in games. EA. And so yeah, I'll give them the props for that. Like, if you're gonna buy microtransactions, that's your own prerogative, but you know, at the very least, they're not affecting the actual game itself.
Shout out to Team Fortress 2 for being the hat simulator and not pay to win for the longest time.
Yeah, but you know, the amount of content like the Team Fortress 2 community put on YouTube, like they use Gmod, or that's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
And they make like the characters like do all sorts of funny dances, and it's like, yeah, Team Fortress 2 has a really dedicated community for sure. That's actually how I've known about the game, through like the YouTube funny content, the memes, and all
yeah, yeah. No, the community is like such a huge part of Team Fortress 2 that like I kind of feel like it's one of the earlier ideas. Well, not early compared to like WoW, right? But like one of the early ideas of like games as service, like this is a lifestyle type of game, even though there's not, you know, constantly new amounts of content being put in the game. There's not like all kinds of grinding for you to do because it's just an FPS at the end of the day. You just play till the end of that match and then you're done. Because of like the social aspect that goes into that, I feel like that is like a big part of those, like, this is the only game you ever need, you know, type of idea behind games. Is like, you need friends? Well, you have all your friends already playing this game with you. Why else would you need to make more friends, you know?
Yeah, I think my first like really strong introduction to Team Fortress 2 was a YouTube video somebody made called Persona 4 Tress, and it was like the Persona 4 intro but with Team Fortress 2 characters. That absolutely killed me. I still laugh about it to this day. I had to go find that video again. But yeah, that was like my first introduction to the Team Fortress 2 community. So good on them.
Yeah, one introduction to me, there was like this funny short of the Team Fortress 2 character. I don't know what the character's name's exactly, but just a guy talking about his glasses, and it's like a sketch, but it's from a movie, I think, or from a TV show. But he's like, "Oh, where's my brand glasses?" And I'm like, "Why is this so funny? Why am I laughing like hysterically right now? It's just hilarious." But yeah, that's an old video. Where's my brand?
Old videos.
Every first experience TFT is personalized.
Yes.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh. Talking about like the old videos and like old Fmod, or not Fmod, old Gmod stuff. Kitty0706 was like my first introduction to the whole Gmod stuff and Team Fortress. Did a lot of funny skits.
Team Fabulous 2 being like the big one that a lot of people got introduced to TF2 by.
Yep, exactly. Him and SMG4 were like my two big ones right there.
Yeah, they're brilliant. They know how to make content like that. They're good at what they aim to do with content like that. It's pretty interesting. You know, they put the characters in a Mario Kart field and they just go at it, and it's like they create their own stories with the characters from Team Fortress 2 or like Super Mario 64. That's very clever.
It really is something special when like a game series does have a devoted fan base that does do like this actual kind of content creation of these works. Like I think of, you know, Team Fortress 2 just in general. I think of Mega Man and Sonic both being like very, very active ROM hacking communities and fan games and the like. You know, Toho is like ridiculous, like the amount of stuff that gets like both Japan only and internationally. Like that's a series made by one guy, and yet there's like so many spin-offs now, a lot of which are even on Switch and stuff. All because of fan love for that game series. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's a shame it's harder to get to see with like Nintendo, like I guess being like the main case of it, but like some other bigger studios as well, just really being like, no, don't use our stuff to make content. Only we can make only we can make stuff with that content. Even if you're not making money off it, no, just cease and desist. Sorry.
I know one example of this. So Sega, I don't know if it's Sega of Japan or Sega of America, but some people were making content for this game called Shining Force 3 for Sega Saturn, and the YouTubers, they got like a takedown because they made like so they got a takedown because they made a gameplay video of one of their favorite series. That's very weird.
That is really, especially because Sega is like usually really good about that kind of thing.
Yeah, they really are, especially with Sonic and all that. And also, like with fan games of Sonic too, and other franchises.
Doesn't Sega straight up host an event every year of like, we're all gonna make Sonic ROM hacks or like Sonic
Sage Expo or something like that?
Yeah, Sage.
Yeah.
I think the same thing.
That's how I that's another reason, like how I found out about other games as well. One in particular, Scratchy Melody. That's how I found out about it through Sage. And another YouTuber, his name's some call me Johnny, and he like hosts that event, and he just showcases all these really interesting ROM hacks or like mods of specific games and all that. And sometimes some developers make games for fun because of this event, but then they end up like developing the game even further to make it into like a full-fledged thing. So you never know what could happen with one of these events.
Something to keep in mind. Is that how Electric Jester was started off? Wasn't it just like something fun made at Sage one year?
Yeah, Spark the Electric Jester. So if anyone doesn't know, that's like a Sonic type of game. So the first game was like it looked like a 2D Sonic game. Play as Spark the Electric Jester. You go fast, kind of like Sonic, but the takeaway is that Spark has like combat moves. So yeah, that's one of the games that came out from Sage from that event. And he actually, the developer actually released Spark the Electric Jester 3, and that game is not like the first one. It's kind of like Sonic Adventure 2 now. So he
skip over the Electric Jester 2.
Oh yeah. So Spark the recent one just came out. Spark the Electric Jester 3. The second game was like kind of like Sonic Adventure 2, and the third game is more so the same, but expanded upon. So yeah, definitely next time there's a Sage event on YouTube or Twitch, make sure to check out any really flashy looking games, because that could be a Steam game or even a Nintendo Switch game. You never know.
Good advice all around.
I wish the industry was like just more open to like celebrating these kinds of things. So I'm thinking of like instances as well of games that got their origins as like fan games or ROM hacks of other games before breaking out into their own kind of thing. Like Valve just being entirely based on that. Team Fortress 1 originally just being a Quake mod until it became the series it was. Same with Defense of the Agents with Dota 2 that are coming out. I know I had more, but like
Counter-Strike.
Yeah, Counter-Strike. Like not even just Valve either. I'm just trying to think of like other examples. Metroid, was it AM2R? Like when that fan game came out and quickly got taken down. That exposure was how the developer for that was able to get brought on board to the Ori and the Blind Forest team and actually be a level designer in the sequel.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, no, it's just like it's good exposure. It's good content. It's like, you know, the brand itself is like getting more people, like showing up in more people's eyes. Like it's a win all around for the most part. I just wish like it wasn't at best, you know, your best acclaim you can get from the original developer is not being shot in the foot from trying to make content with their IP.
Yeah, Nintendo really messed up with that A2MR developer, because he's very gifted, he's talented. They should have just brought him on board and worked with him on any Nintendo IP. They really, they really shot themselves in the foot there.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of games and whatnot, I had this other question on here is about what draws us to the games we play, but I feel like we kind of answered it earlier. in the introduction. I'm not sure if you guys want to touch up on it or not.
Okay. What draws me to games that I want to play, and I think if the character is relatable, if there's something about the character that just pops out to me, if there's like a complexity about this character, there's like a mysterious nature to like why this character is in this game and what's the purpose of the game. Another thing is when I look at a game trailer, I just want to like see the aesthetics. If any of the vibrant colors pop out to me, I also question like if I look at a game, will this be a game that is going to be replayable for me? If I can get the most out of my dollar, I think that is a very, very important factor into that. That's really when it comes to that. That's what I look forward to. If I could just see if there's a game out there that just pops out to me, both aesthetically, if there's a message with the character or the game itself, and also what kind of genre of game I'm interested in at the moment as well.
I'm actually really glad you asked this question, because I had a sort of epiphany of self-realization on it semi-recently, where I played a game that some of you may have heard of, just a little indie thing called The Outer Wilds.
I knew it was going to be that one.
Yeah, of course it was going to be that one. And that game, to sum it up without any spoilers, is just all about exploration. That's all you do. And that was real nice, because when I got to the end of it, I was like, dang, that's got to be one of my top 10 games ever. And the similarity that it had with the other top 10 games was generally just exploration. If your game has a world that compels me to explore or learn more about it, that's what draws me to a game. Like the Metroid Prime games. Big component of those is just exploring the world, scanning everything. Scan Visor is an excellent piece of game design. But like the Dark Souls series and all of those related From Software games, just having big, complex worlds to explore and learn about by reading item descriptions and the like. Just that. That's my number one. It's not the only thing, but that is the number one thing that draws me to a game, is if it has a world that is compelling and interesting to explore.
Oh, okay, I kind of like that one. I'm right along there with you. It's difficult for me because I don't say I have like varied tastes, but I enjoy all kinds of styles of games. So I guess in general, what usually draws me is probably that gameplay loop. I think if it's one that I can jive well with, then I'm pretty set. So I guess using that recent example of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, the combats and the way exploration, the two weave in and out of each other, that's really what keeps me drawn in and playing. The story as well. You know what? Yeah, no, it's rough. It's between the story and that core gameplay loop. If I had to pick one, I think I would say the story might be just a little bit more important for me, because I love being able to work through whatever a narrative is, no matter what it is. I just need something to keep me going, and because I get hooked into stories very, very easily. I used to write stories when I was in grade school and stuff, so just a part of my brain that I really, really enjoy. So a good story, even like an average story, is okay with me. I need something to keep me going, That's why sometimes I struggle with more like open-ended games as far as the narrative goes. Like I like to have a beginning, middle, end, conflict, a resolution. And that was one of the reasons why I thought Breath of the Wild was kind of an outlier for me, because usually I'm not too fond of like just these big aimless open world games. But that one was just stellar at the time, so that was kind of an outlier. But that's me. I really need a good story to keep going, and, or just even half decent one, honestly. So story for me, that's what draws me in the game.
Definitely, I feel that a lot,
Okay.
Jeeves. I was just gonna. I'll let you go first, Spirit.
Oh no, that's fine. That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna say for me, definitely, it's the story, it's the music, and it's definitely the graphics. I know graphics. I really enjoy being able to really immerse myself in a world and experience, and graphics, sound, and story are definitely like those 3 key points to doing it. And it makes such a believable story at a certain point that it just clicks so well. I think one of my favorite games of all time would definitely have to be Kena, The Bridge of Spirits. It's just so beautifully well done, crafted, and literally all of my A-star people are on that project, which just makes me so happy.
Oh wow, yeah, that Kino game, I just got it recently. I'm super ecstated to try that one out.
Yes, it is such an indie darling. Rosen, Theophany, you had the Ember Labs people work on it. All people who when I was going through college at least, I looked up to. They were like the amazing rock stars of the field at the time of like indies of indies. And now they're like developing for the PS5 on this new game. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes please. Got it, played it, loved it. Definitely would recommend it.
Awesome. So I wanted to add, for me, there has to be a reason for why I want to get a specific game. So like we talked about Sonic Frontiers, and the reason why I would want to get into that is because it reminds me of Sonic Adventure. And I'm a retro type of gamer, you know. So there has been games that reminded me of the past. Like I know I've brought this game up in this interview, but I've talked about Scratching Melody, and that game reminds me of Parappa the Rapper. That was a PS1 game. That was a rhythm genre type game. So I definitely want to. Once that game releases, I'm going to be day one checking that one out. A friend of mine, Nico Papalia, he's making this game called Athenian Rhapsody, and so it's like an Undertale type of game, but it has its own spin to it. It's very unique what Nico's trying to do with this game. I played the demo for it, and the humor is really up my alley, and that's really one of the reasons why I want to get the game day one, because of the humor of the game. Like there was times I just like chuckled. It was such a fun time playing that game. So I think when it all boils down to is like, what's the reason, what's the motivation of why a player wants to get the game? It could be because it reminds them of something that they've played prior. It could be an emotional feeling that they have towards the characters. It could be because the graphics look really great. It could be even the simple fact that the game's on Game Pass. So it could be a multiple amount of reasons why they will pick up a game and just go for it.
Very well said. Just to talk about Game Pass, still the best value in gaming currently. You just can't beat that, honestly. But yeah, that's pretty it. Was there any other thoughts about this? Great hallmark quotes from everybody.
I never got my side of it.
You skipped over you? Oh.
Yep.
Then say it now.
Oh yeah, I guess I can. So for me, it's 100%. Game essence is like the main thing I'll always look for in a game. Foremost, because like, you know, a good story, good art style, good music, like all of that will enhance an experience. But like, you know, it's like you can have foundational pillars for a game, but if you don't have a floor, like that's not a house anymore. That's not a structure. You just have like pillars in a void, and that's how I feel about a lot of games that like, you know, they might nail all these other aspects, but like if the gameplay itself is not fun, I just struggle to like, you know, play through it. And it's why like, you know, even though I do like a handful of RPGs, like I've noticed that all my favorite ones, the Mother series, Paper Mario, Xenoblade Chronicles, all of those like have very fun battle systems and a lot of like, you know, it's not just walking around. They're like actually things more to do in the overworld sequences. Like, the games do put a focus on their gameplay foremost, and just make it so, like, on repeat playthrough, it's like, all right, I've already experienced, the twists and turns here. I'm already, like, hearing this music no longer for the first time. Like, if I can replay a game and still feel that same kind of satisfaction, if not more, now that I better understand these systems going into the game, if I can't do that, like, just don't do it. No, sorry. It's like, I don't want to open up the whole modern Paper Mario can of worms. Like, that's a taboo in most communities, I want to feel like. But, like, Superstar in particular, like, it wasn't even just the lack of, like, a riveting story, the lack of unique characters that's, like, made me dislike that game so much. It's just not a fun game. Like, the battle system is just straight up, there's no strategy, there's not a lot of depth, there's not a lot of customization, you don't really get a lot of options besides, like, what you pick up. It's just, the gameplay was bogged down, and that's why I didn't like Superstar, and that's why I don't really like a lot of the series moving forward. Just I'm trying not to, like, ramble on more than I need to here, but that's basically the crux of it. Of, like, a game can have a bad story, like Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse. That can have a really bad story, but if that gameplay is really good, I will play through it more than once.
I mean, if the gameplay is good, the gameplay is good. The story could take a backseat for
no. The story could actually make me cringe. Like, that's fine, as long as I'm just having a good time doing other things. It's that's pretty much what I hear. Neon White also lives on, is that story is actively awful, but people all agree that gameplay is sick. So I probably need to play that at some point. I'd probably like it for that exact same reason.
Yeah, it's on my backlog to play. Heard the same things as you. I'll get around to it one day.
Yep.
The old backlog.
It's on getting bigger and bigger. Oh, pretty good. Did we miss anybody? No.
I can go again if you like.
No.
Oh, no.
We heard your bad
Charles...
opinion. One is enough.
Yeah.
Oh, I already got it. Got it. Yep. I'm good.
This is really fun. I'm enjoying this.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you. Well, and train is almost to the station. Our last question. And this one is a very important one to me, honestly, because you kind of see this flip-flopping around where it seems like people don't really know what they want or what the right avenue is to choose, but we'll discuss it anyway. It says, you see a sentiment shared by many that they want game developers to take more risks to stop playing things safe, but when studios do take risks and good products, that's the keyword, good products, are delivered, there's sometimes a lack of sales and return on investment to support further ventures like that. Are we owed varied and unique game experiences, or have those expectations become too lofty?
Is there a more concise, like, explanation of the question itself? Like, I'm not really sure what I'm trying to answer to here.
Can I attempt to paraphrase?
Yes, go ahead.
Verbally, the gaming community at large says we want more variety in our games. But with their wallets, the gaming community at large says, give us the same. Are we owed that variety or not?
Oh, I took it a totally different way.
Oh, really? Well, what's your...
Yeah, I was thinking that was more so on the lines of, going from it like as a AAA area, since a lot of the questions were like AAA related as well. A lot of times those studios are like, hey, let's do something new. And they raise their bars up so high that at a certain point it's like, okay, we need to sell 500,000 copies of this one game or it's not going to get a sequel. The game only sells maybe like 250,000 copies. They break even, but at that point there's no sequel and the studio kills that IP. Yeah, that's what I thought the question was going on.
There's not a right or wrong answer to either one. It was left open like that for a reason. I wanted different perspectives about it. Because there isn't a way you can be concise about a topic I won't say this large, but as open as this. You can approach it from several different avenues, and that was the point. I'm glad you brought that up, Charles.
No, you're good. Then I guess to kind of complete that point really quick. So yeah, I think definitely I feel the ideals have become way too lofty, especially going through. I don't know the exact numbers, but Konami is like a good example of what you need to do in order to make a sequel. Square Enix is another one. You got Nintendo as well. These studios, they rely so much on previous IPs because everybody knows what Mario is. It's going to sell just because it has Mario's IP on there, most likely. Versus what's this new game with like a snake and it's crawling around on the ground and it's all physics-based. Nobody knows what that is. It's completely new. And very little people are actually going to poke at it and pick at it with their wallets. And if they do, and the game manages to be great, more often than not, it's never going to reach the bars that it needs with the other IP-related titles.
Yeah. That I know what game you're talking about. Snake Pass. That's depressing because I bought that on launch day and I loved it. I know it was kind of short and everything, but I thought it was a fantastic platformer with the concept. And it's been like, 5 years later since 2017 and no sequel in sight. So that's always really sad to see good games like that not get follow-ups.
Another to the
Definitely
pile of
agreed.
2017 being an absolute banger for games.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just got sad thinking about Snake Pass because I really did like that game. That's really, really sad to be.
It was a very unique
I'm so
game,
sorry.
like, so different from the pack, you know, just a different type of game.
I think
Yeah.
with
And sorry, I'll let you.
I was gonna like go back to the question. If you had any further thoughts on it, you may as well finish up.
For sure, yeah, no, I was just gonna say there's been tons of games in the past as well too. Glover N64, that was an amazing game I loved as a kid. Good example of that. The bar was set way too high. They ordered way too many carts and it killed the company. There's been so many cases of things like that, but I'm glad to see that indie studios are kind of picking up where AAAs have kind of left behind in games like, Ukulele managed to push through their controversial launches and landings and make a pretty good sequel.
So, the only example I can think of at the moment is of the Sonic games, right? So around the Sonic Adventure series, you know, the way Sonic, his momentum, the gameplay wise, was a specific way. And then, you know, Sonic Heroes happened, Shadow the Hedgehog, Sonic 06, and Sega decided to push out Sonic Unleashed. And in that game, there's the daytime stages where there's a boost formula. And a lot of players really like that change, that different type of variety. So Sega said, you know what, this is working. Let's keep going with this. You know. Then they released Sonic Colors and then Sonic Generations, and at a point, Sega just kept kind of doing the same thing over and over again for the most part. So that's why, like, now where we're at right now with Sonic Frontiers, it's a different change, and it feels kind of like a breath of fresh air, you know. So sometimes a change in the scope of a game and its franchise could definitely work in many ways. It can have its benefits. You cannot just keep doing the same thing over and over again because eventually things will get stale. So that's why I think that changing things up here and there could be very beneficial for a game. Just always make sure that your players are the priority when you're developing a game. Whether you want to change things up, you want to say to yourself, like, how is this going to affect the way the players will feel about this game going forward with the franchise or the game that you're working on. You know, that's always numero uno, priority number one. That's how I feel about that.
I feel like my stance is that it really just depends on like what the goals are of a specific series to begin with, and like if you are making changes, like not making changes just for change's sake, right? but to like address one of those goals, maybe there's like a flaw that's holding it back from doing that type of thing, or maybe we have this new spin on like, here's how we could go about what we're trying to do with the series in like a different but like much, going in a much harder kind of way. That like, I feel like that's just the most important thing to consider, is that like, I don't think the average person really dislikes experimentation as much as like vocal minority may lead to believe. I think it's just really a question, though, of how often developers understand what makes their games appealing to the audiences in the first place, and then making sure that while changing up these new things, that the old aspects that are that important to the fans, are still kept in the transition to this new style of game. And that's where we often end up with a lot of games that do end up with a lot of backlash. That like they change up too much because like you change the thing that made this game beloved in the first place, and now I don't want to play it. Stuff like Metroid Prime Federation Force, for example, when that came out at the absolute worst timing of the Metroid drought we had for close to a decade at that point. Other
that
M
came out after Other M too.
Yeah, Other M being the one we had before that entry. It's like we want a traditional 2D Metroid or Metroid Prime. Give us an adventure like that again. And they respond with, "Oh, here's a mission-based multiplayer first-person shooter game. We also have Metroid on the brand. Samus is there sometimes, but you don't play as her." It's like none of that is what people are asking for. None of that. There's no exploration in a traditional like world sense. It's like, this isn't for the target demographic of the series up to that point. Like, if it's that game's goal was like to expand on the world building of the series, sure. But then a lot of fans, don't play Metroid because they want to see like the universal world building of the games. They want to they play those games because they want to see the world building of that particular game's world, right? Like the BSL station of Metroid Fusion. That's that's not a literal world. It's not a location that we're going to be revisiting many times throughout the series. But it's like people are interested in that game setting, and so it's like when you present a new game that's like just trying to like, I don't know, not like it's trying to answer questions people didn't ask, like that. I feel like that's just one of many issues to run into with that kind of thing. But to bring it back though, is just making sure that if you do experiment, that you are still sticking to what makes that game beloved in the first place. That said, that's also easier said than done, because there are also so many game series that like people will love for different reasons. Like the two big ones I think of being The Legend of Zelda and Sonic the Hedgehog. Of like, because those games have done a fair amount of experimentation over the decades, is that there are so many games that people will love for one reason or another that it's just completely absent in earlier or later entries, and that just makes it so it's like an impossible to please fan base, because it's no longer just one fan base. You have multiple fan bases united under one IP technically. It's like why Sonic the Hedgehog, like some people just really want a really fast game where you play as Sonic the Hedgehog and it's momentum based in 2D, or others want like an adventure style 3D platformer with like multiple characters to play as. It's like it's an impossible thing to like create a game like that makes everyone happy without like bogging down certain aspects of your game and like trying to appeal to everyone, making no one happy for that thing, or just going hard into like the one fan base that like super loves this game, but everyone else is like kind of just meh about it. Like that's the reception to Breath of the Wild, from what I understand, of like the people who play Zelda because they love exploration, absolutely love Breath of the Wild for that reason. But anyone else that's like they're there because they enjoy the story and characters of the series. They enjoy the type of dungeon structure where you always find an item in dungeon and then use that to progress through the second half, beat the boss that way. It's like you take out that kind of stuff that's no longer there, and then suddenly those fans that are looking for that like just feel a little let down in comparison for it. But yeah, it's just a thing of like when you're experimenting, just always keep that in mind of like who is your audience and what are they looking for whatever your goals are.
Yeah, very well articulated. I honestly couldn't have said it better myself. You really have to keep the context in mind when you're talking about games and who your audience is and what you're doing for them. It's important for developers not to lose sight of that. Yeah, very well said. Thank you.
Awesome.
Indeed. It is more restrictive in a franchise or long-running context. But honestly, there are certainly ways devs can get around that. I'm going to use Sekiro by From Software as an example, where that's pretty decently different from any of the other Souls, Bloodborne-esque titles they've produced. But to be honest, still quite similar in many ways. Honestly, game devs can just make not the same IP and have similarities if they want to explore more diverse avenues than what they have been with that series before. I mean, that's how they did that in that example. That's how they can do it with others. Which is why it's always so funny to me when something that wasn't originally part of an existing IP gets like retconned into it, like Star Fox Adventures.
Oh yeah,
It's just fully 100% a different game than anything.
My beloved. That I will die on that hill. I love that game.
Yet you still can't deny that it was an entirely different game from any other Star Fox title we had before.
Oh yeah, no, of course. And I'm kind of sad because I really did want to play. I really do want to play Dinosaur Planet, whatever its original vision would have been. But I like Adventures. What we got, so I'll leave it there.
Oh yeah,
It's a great game. If you like Zelda, I definitely recommend that game.
yeah. This is in no way an attack on Star Fox Adventures. Just pointing out that I find it funny that companies will do that to put brand name recognition on a new title of theirs when it can be something so wildly different than what the existing IP is.
It's the eternal question of, do we create this game's world to make full sense within the type of story we're trying to tell and the mechanics and everything that goes into that? Or do we want this game to sell?
Mhm.
And usually the latter is why we get IP slapped on at the last minute. And sometimes you just get neither with games like Xenoblade Chronicles X. I love that game, by the way.
I do too.
Oh gosh.
I think it's funny you brought up Star Fox Adventures, but it's almost weird how history repeated itself again with Starlink, and they just had like the Star Fox characters brought in for the Switch version. Don't get me wrong, that is a very, very good game. That is an excellent game, even with the Star Fox content. But it's just, I just don't understand why they just wouldn't let them make a Star Fox game. Just because it's so obvious they wanted to make a Star Fox game.
That is a great question.
When I worked at Best Buy for one holiday season, I bought a copy of Starlink, got my cool R-Wing figure, and then put that game card aside and just never touched it because I just really wanted the R-Wing.
Yeah. But yeah, on experimentation, you can be free to experiment. It's so easy. Just don't make a game in an existing series. Make something new. Then you're free to experiment as weirdly as you want without offending existing fans of that series.
Some fans will find ways to be upset anyway. Like, a lot of Nintendo fans are like, what? They're making this game series instead of the next Zelda? What the heck, Nintendo? Why are you being such an idiot? Despite not being aware that the developers for this series and that series are not the same people at all, and that Nintendo does have multiple teams at once under their belt.
True enough. There's no accounting for gamers.
I think if there's like a,
derogatory.
I think if there's like a winning formula that don't change what's not broken, right? But it's always good to try new things here and there. And if the company wants to make something new, they can always just make like the spiritual successor to a certain IP, or it's always best to just see what works and doesn't really work. when creating a new game. So yeah.
That's a bit of a slippery slope because then you end up with like the Call of Duty series.
Yeah, that's the wrong way to do it. But if people really like the boost formula, like for example in Sonic, right? That was working for a good while, and then now we're coming out with Sonic Frontiers. So it's like, yeah, we have to change something here because the players are getting bored of this certain style of gameplay. Whatever the vision of the company and the game developers, whatever they decide to do, they just try to see if it works out in the end, based on reception, of the players. If there's something that they've done and you see like the critics bashing the game, there's negative reviews, I'm pretty sure most of the time the company or the game developer is not going to do the same thing over and over again after getting like all those negative comments and negative reviews. So the power really is in the players. When they speak up and they tell companies and game developers like what they didn't like about a specific game that just came out. So yeah, if you played a game, raise your voice and write that review, because you never know if they're paying attention or not. They could definitely change something about a series based on what the players are talking about. But of course, sometimes companies will just disregard people based on what they want to do and just go the easy route and just go ahead and do a cash grab and just keep working the same formula over and over again. So, for example, the Call of Duty series, they could just keep doing it over and over again. As long as it's selling for them, they'll just keep doing it, right? But yeah, reviews, critics, and negative response can do wonders for a company to change their mentality when making games, or make a new game like a spiritual successor, or just try something new every now and then. The power is really in the player.
Yeah.
I'm always ready to be.
Because when he was saying that, I was just thinking of how we went from Super Paper Mario to Sticker Star, and the only thing Nintendo learned was that, I guess they just want to take their turns now, and that was the only major change between games. Completely disregarded what people actually wanted. Like, there you go, you guys can take turns now, and that's all you got. So it's kind of, there needs to be some context behind that, and the nuance with companies and what they're gonna do. You can never predict, but there's no one size fits all type solution for this, unfortunately.
I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to the developer and, again, how well they understand their own series.
Absolutely. I was about to get to that. Yeah, you're right about that.
Chibi Robo fans will never let it down. We had Ziplash come out, and that was the game that they probably declared, oh yeah, we'll use this one to gauge interest in the series, and if it doesn't sell, we just won't make any more Chibi Robo games. Easy enough. And then it didn't sell. And now Chibi Robo fans have nothing but a indie spiritual successor coming out, Miscellaneous. Is the only thing they can really look forward to. That and I forgot what their company name was. Onion Games, that's right. Onion Games, who were part of the whole Love to Lick earlier developer that went on to create Chibi Robo with a lot of those staff members. How they're trying to port more of their games now to modern systems. But it's unless you're excited for Moon RPG Remix or Miscellaneous, it's not good being a Chibi Robo fan right now, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, so there is companies that just flat out don't listen at all to their players, their viewers. In my lifetime, I've been begging for another F-Zero game, and I hope by the time it comes out, I'll still be alive. So you're absolutely right about that. But there is examples, for example, we talked about No Man's Sky, where the players have voiced their opinion, and the developer took notice, decided to change things up, and now the game is just way different than it was originally. So it was they took the feedback and did something positive with it. So I'm not saying like all companies will listen to their players, but I'm pretty sure a lot of companies are willing to. I just think that reviews are very important. So if you're on Steam and you played a game, you should definitely leave a review. If someone makes a news outlet makes a review on, like, let's say IGN, write a comment. You never know who's watching.
I guess I'm just a little more pessimistic about it because, again, Paperverse as a whole foundation, like, there's still a lot of other projects going on here on the aside. Don't get me wrong, but I do not think Paperverse would be as big as it is today if Nintendo actually did go back to working on the type of formula people have been asking for over a decade again at this point. That like sometimes like you can shout and scream and petition and give feedback all you want, but it really just does come down to the developer at the end of the day, whether or not they actually listen. And so it's it doesn't hurt to try. You'll definitely get more out of it than not trying, but it's just, I don't know. It's just not a good place to be in. Of like, you can only pray and hope at best is what it feels like sometimes.
I'll counterpoint that though. Sorry, really quick. I'll counterpoint that though, because I feel like although we in our generation really want to go back to the original Paper Mario, I've seen the newer generations really get attached to like Sticker Star and Color Splash and Origami King and all of the newer Paper Mario games. So I feel like Nintendo also has to deal with that split in the schism of fan base, where it's just like there's the old people who really enjoyed the older games, but they kind of developed a newer fan base that we're just not a part of. And I mean, props to us because we can make our own games and enjoy what we want to do and really go off of our ambitions of creating that game that we want. But yeah, I definitely want to say like there is fans of those games, and I feel like
for sure.
Yeah.
Like
I don't want to discard them.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to discredit fans of the newer series. I will say, like, Color Splash, I'm a little hazy on. I don't know if you can convince me or not. Like, a lot of people even play that to begin with enough where people can like feel nostalgic for that game. But like modern Paper Mario as a whole, like, yeah, people that like those games. It just means that, it brings up what I talked about earlier now of like, now we've divided what used to be one fan base, now it's divided into multiple fan bases, like Sonic the Hedgehog, Legend of Zelda, and it just turns into that issue then of like, okay, well now we have some games that are appeasing some people, but then others, others just might not get that attention again, or if they do, it'll alienate the newer players that do like the modern style Paper Mario. So it's just not a good situation to like end up in the first place, I feel like.
Definitely.
I think Sega's handling that kind of well. Like, with Sonic Mania. So they have like two fan bases, like you mentioned. They make Sonic Mania that caters to the retro fans and all that, and then they make their modern stuff. So it really depends, like how sometimes players will cross over. So like modern fans of a specific game, they can cross over to a specific type of game of the same series, so like let's say modern Sonic players, they're interested to check out the retro stuff, and then like the retro gamers will check out the newer modern type of gameplay with the Sonic series. So that could happen not just with Sega, but with any other I think here's another example. So Castlevania, right? They haven't really put out a new Castlevania game as of late, Konami. So one of the developers who worked on the games prior, I forgot what his name was, but he released Bloodstained Ritual of the Nights, and that game's phenomenal. So that same developer also made a retro style Bloodstained game. I think it's called Curse of the Moon 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So like he's catering to two different types of audiences, but at the same time, the players are interested in the retro and the modern. So that could work, and also sometimes it could not work for specific series. But that's going back to like experimenting with your community, with your players. See what works, what doesn't work, and all that.
I mean, it comes back to like the whole thing of understanding what makes your game appealing to begin with, and seeing if there are any aspects that do cross over between like these multiple fan bases. Like, is there something that's like in this Venn diagram that they do share in common? Is like just really trying to make sure that's always the main thing that stands out if you do experiment.
Yeah,
because otherwise, like, you end up making multiple Venn diagrams if you end up like leaning too hard in some other direction. That's like separate from, like, it's specific to one subseries, but then separate from the rest.
Yeah, and sometimes you could even do a combination of the two. You could do a hybrid in one game. So an example I can think of is Super Mario Odyssey. That game is fresh, it's awesome, it's new, it's modern. But there is some sections in the game where you turn into retro Mario. You turn like into a pixelated version of Mario in some sections of the game. So it introduces the retro style of gameplay of the past in something more modern, and it gets players, younger generation of players, and even newer generations of players interested of the old and the new. So that is one way that Nintendo tackled that situation very, very nicely.
Yeah, as long as both halves of it like stick to that core idea of, I don't think it's excuse me, I don't think it's an uncontroversial thing to say. People like Mario because of platforming. Like, you play a 2D or 3D Mario game, you like to jump. I'm hoping no one will argue with me about that. So
no disagreements here.
Yeah, it's a pretty good money bet.
But that's how you do that hybrid, is like address, what is the thing that everyone wants out of like these sub-series of one another? Oh, the jumping. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. We'll go with that. Like, hybrid is absolutely a great way to go with it. It's just really defining like what makes the hybrid work, as opposed to making a hybrid of two things that A, don't go together, and B, make neither fan base happy. Because there have also been other games I've seen that do that kind of thing. Like the Fire Emblem Shin Megami Tensei crossover that was planned. And they came out with that game, and it ended up being the game that neither fan base wanted, because it was just neither of them. It was just a whole bunch of OCs and like a Persona Light dungeon crawler, I guess.
Yeah, talking about Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very strange game.
It's like a decent game. It's not a bad game overall, but it's like, as a Fire Emblem fan, well, it doesn't have any of what I want from Fire Emblem in there. Like, I guess Anna works at a convenience store. That's neat, I guess. That's pretty much it. As a Shin Megami Tensei fan, okay, I'm looking for like cool, hard dungeons, demon fusion kind of stuff. Oh, it's like sort of Persona instead, but like kind of less mechanics. Okay, that works, I guess. Like, is either fan base, right? It's like, you have a hybrid, but then neither of them really work to like make it a better whole kind of thing. Like, that's just an example of like the hybrid gone wrong. But like, there's absolutely plenty of ways to do hybrids gone right kind of thing. It's just, again, about the developers making sure they acknowledge what is that thing that should go into the hybrid.
Yeah, very, very well said. I wouldn't even want to open the can of worms myself, because, like you said, there's multiple ways it can go right, but I feel like it's pretty easy to lose sight of what made two parts of something great when brought together, because you can invariably create something wholly unique and not for the better, if you catch my drift. So that would be a concern of mine. But excellent points all around. I really like that discussion, because it's something to keep in mind if you do decide to start blending different concepts or different games into your own game, especially because we do that sometimes. We'll pull what we think works from X series and to put it in our game, but we need to make sure that we're still staying cognizant of if that's really a good matchup.
It'll be a great hybrid when Tales from Altaria and Slimebreaker do that major crossover project, and it's all about fishing. There's no RPG combat. It's just
I play that. I play that.
It'll make a new
big-
sect of people happy. I'm sure it'll make an equal amount of people not happy.
Be pretty good. Yeah, is excellent work, guys. Really excellent points. Was there anything else we had on this topic right here?
I got more than my fair share out.
Just it's been
pretty good.
It's been an honor. It's been an honor being on this interview.
I'm glad to have you. I know you're pretty busy, so it was great to get everyone together this Saturday. And just really quick, is like, since we're already in the outro and last thoughts, this says not relevant to anything going on here, but Charles, specifically you, wanted to ask you, because out of everyone here, we're the only ones making 3D games. So when you started development, did you decide to switch disciplines as far as scalability and graphics goes? Because when I started, I wanted to push for more graphics, but after the Kickstarter and everything, I switched to making TFA more scalable. Have you decided if you're going to switch or anything, or are you still going to have that push for higher fidelity?
Definitely. It's interesting because working on this project, we've been at work on it for about 5 years at this point now. It's been a very long time. At first, we were always looking at scalability whenever we were trying to figure out our art style and stuff like that. It actually turned out to be initially a 2D game that later grew into a 3D game. And the reason why it grew into a 3D game was more so over how do we want to tackle the art. The art has always been the sole focus of how are we going to do it for so long at this point. And I want to say 3 years ago, we very much took the high fidelity sort of form that we are currently at today. And it was an interesting push because, as you said, how do you make that scalable? That was Kristen's question as well, too. Day one was, okay, this looks awesome, but this is a lot of work. Holy cow. I'm like, yes. And we both grabbed a package off the asset store, tossed it into the game, and started studying how other people are doing their assets, and very quickly started figuring out the best ways of going about how to do said assets. And the interesting thing that we found out was that the game can look very amazing and awesome and cool, and it can do so with us taking a backseat a little bit in some areas and really focusing on how we can get the most out of the bang of our buck for what little assets we can push out and shove into the scene. Things like, how do we make maybe 3 or 4 trees work for us for an entire area? Or how do we make like maybe 3 or 4 chairs really work for us by changing and swapping out textures? It's been an insanely amazing time, but we're still pushing for the high fidelity. And I think in our case, at least, it's always been, how do we make the high fidelity work for us in terms of scalability? What kind of tools can we pick up? What kind of things can we do? What kind of pipelines can we construct to help automate more of the, I don't want to say tedious sides, but more of the time consuming areas. Like, a good example is for texturing. We use a system called Substance Painter 3D. Amazing system if you don't want to sit there and work with 2D UVs all day in a art program, which sucks. And what's amazing about this program is that you can create your own materials that are smart and work with all these additional maps that you can create within the program itself via a click of a button, and spit out a base texture to work with. And this base texture can take up to, I think the last time we timed it was 8 hours or so. And with the smart material in there, that same texture now only takes maybe 2 hours, and we get an even better results out of it versus spending those 10 hours on it. So definitely, hopefully that answers your question. It's definitely figuring out how can we build a pipeline around that high fidelity art style, so we can make sure that it is definitely scalable. Some of our scenes for like the new island that we came up with only took us maybe a month to do all those assets at most, and it's been a stellar time.
Yeah, that's my question, pretty much. I was just curious. It was like I said, it was no serious topic since we're in like the last thoughts part of
the podcast. I just wanted to know how you guys started out with that. Because for those who don't know, who are just listening to or are familiar with his project, Mogrimera, I would say, because I know what's going into it, is probably the most technically impressive game we have in Paperverse right now. That's not just gassing him up. It really is. Like, what's going into making a game with such a small team is kind of insane. It would kind of make you just like run up the wall and crazy. So I'm always curious, always asking questions about it, trying to figure out how they're making something so large, also is scalable as well. But yeah, that was it. I don't know if any of you guys have any other points or interesting things you wanted to ask. Now is the time. Come on, don't be shy.
Like final thoughts.
Yeah, it's the final thoughts.
Okay, so I'm always actively trying to find like developers. You know, I would like to promote and do interviews. Right now, I'm kind of like on a hiatus. Like the last interview that I've done for a game developer was for a game called Declines Drops, and I had to take a hiatus. So I'm hoping in 2023, I would love to continue the show, the series that I've been doing, getting to know game creators and creators in general. So if anyone's listening right now, if you want, reach out to me on Twitter or YouTube, I guess, Spirit Buddy, and I'll be happy to check out your games and you know, your content, your comics, anything you want to share with me. I'm currently working on a Google form so that people could actively like apply and showcase their press kits and all that. I'm very, very interested in game developers. I just really do appreciate what they do for a lot in the community, and I'm just very happy to be a part of this interview. I feel like it's a very big honor, and I'm happy to say that I got to express myself today. You know, I'm not just a gamer that goes on Twitch and just rages at the game and says, "Oh, this game sucks." You know, today I got to share like a piece of knowledge, and thank you for allowing me to do so. And yeah, I think that's about it. Oh, and I believe there should be in the future, hopefully, there should be a indie game award show, indie game developer award show every year, so that, you know, there could be like awards going to games that come out in the indie scene, and that they truly deserve that recognition. I know that there's the game award show. There should be an indie game developer show or something like that. I'm hoping that's going to be a thing in the future, because there's a lot of promising games coming out nowadays that go under the radar, and they should definitely get recognized. So support your game developers and the games that come out recently. And you know, I'm not trying to low blow AAA companies. You know, of course, support AAA companies, because you know, with the money they can make the sequels that you've been waiting for. So if you like something, speak out, leave a review, and yeah, support your indie game developers. And I'm looking forward to speaking with y'all very soon. And thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I was very excited when I reached out. I was like, I hope he can come on for today. I've been wanting to sit down and talk to you for a while, since I think even a little bit of last year. But we've had different schedules, and it's been kind of hard to coordinate things, especially here over at the Paperverse. But I'm glad today was finally the day, and I'm glad you all were able to join as well. It does my heart good to be able to sit down and talk to you guys just casually like this, because this stuff it means a lot to me. I'm very passionate about it, and it's great to find other like-minded developers and friends in the community as well. But you guys already know who I am. Please, Breaker Team, tell people where they can find you and give us your last thoughts about today.
Yeah.
Slimebreaker, you can find us on Twitter at Radversaries. Like, that's the adversaries, like rival character kind of thing, right? Adversaries with an R at the start. Or to search up Slimebreaker. There is no I in Slime. It's Slime with a Y. Otherwise, like, I frequent the Paperverse server, so you could probably just like catch me if you ever join up. Join that Discord server. So hey, that's a thought too. And also support Java Saga, which is not a game I really got to talk about today, but that's also a game I'm working on as well, and that can also be found on Twitter at Java Saga.
Where I'm gonna have links for everything in the description as well. So
very nice.
You guys will be able to find it. Don't worry. Don't you worry. Mr. Charles.
Sad, you got anything?
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm just in the same place as Boober is, as a fellow member of the Slyme Breaker team. So, if you're interested in finding one of us, you'll probably end up finding both of us. Final thoughts are, you're welcome that I've graced this podcast with my presence. And thank you to all of you for gracing it with your presence as well. There have been some very insightful takes this afternoon.
I mean, whoever's editing this video, like, Godspeed. I've been there, so I know editing could take a while. So, but yeah, this was a great experience. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast.
Yes, and my name is Charles. I'm part of the Mogdu team over here. Yes, as you guys kind of heard, game's been in production for about 5 years. You can find us all over the place if you search up Mogrimera, Mogrimea. And yeah, lots of things happening this end of the year / upcoming next year. So keep an eye out. You'll definitely probably be seeing us in the future. Definitely, I would say hop on a Paperverse. We're there. It's a fun time here with lots of amazing devs, lots of amazing people, and we even got Spirit Buddy here, which is just an amazing Twitch chat, Twitch streamer. Yes.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you.
I'm a longtime fan, so I was there for your Sonic Heroes playthrough. It was such a blast to watch through that.
That game took me 16 days to complete. I 100% that game. It took me 16 days. Thank you, Josh, for support.
I watched the pain. You're welcome. And yeah, thank you so much for having me again. This is just an amazing time to get to share thoughts and opinions, especially on game development and the gaming worlds. And I really enjoy sharing my expertise in some of like the AAA side as well as the indie side.
I appreciate you guys all being here. And like I said, links will be in the description. No information will be omitted so everyone can find you. But other than that, that's going to be it for episode 2. And just thank you to everyone who'll be watching this when it goes live, who sat in the audience. Yes, I see you, May and Mr. Dave. Thank you guys very much. And that's going to be it for us. Ciao. Have a good day.
Take care.
Thanks for spending 3 hours with us.
Take care.
Yes, 3 hours. Oh my goodness.
Goodbye.
Thank you.